個人好辛苦啊，即係唔好咁樣繼續撐落去。我希望啲中意我嘅人都唔好咁樣去諗咯。我希望如果我冇中意我嘅人都唔好咁樣去打翻招呼諗咯。我希望好嬲佢，或者我好唔中意佢，或者我好差，點解唔睬人？其實唔係，因為你總唔能夠24小時都喺度撐住噶嘛。
好啱啊！呢個你套舞台劇裏面咧，我聽講係有啲粵曲嘅元素噶嘛，係咪啊？嗰個粵曲元素係使乜由你去帶出嚟嘅？係使乜由你去帶出嚟嘅？
其實咧就唔係嘅。咁當佢俾個劇本我睇嗰陣時候咧，就原來要有啲粵曲嘅元素嘅。就原來要有啲粵曲嘅元素嘅。當然佢係一個舞台劇嚟啦，但係有啲粵曲嘅元素啦。
即係要唱噶嘛？
係啦，我係識唱嘅。但係我又唔係話一個花旦，我又好麻煩，我淨係聽任白嘅啫，其他啲我唔聽嘅，所以我好窄嘅啫嗰條路。但係因為我喺一個粵曲世家裏邊成長嘅，我就喺個血裏邊啦已經。我 until 有一日我知道咗，原來我得嘅，即係我可以呃到人嘅，但係唔係話我係一個大嘅人，但係當後尾佢個劇本，當後尾佢個劇本我哋圍讀嘅時候咧，發現佢覺得唔夠好啊，於是佢就話俾我聽，我哋要抌咗呢一個，重新寫過。咁我就有啲緊張啦。咁 anyway 到後尾佢重新寫過嗰陣時候咧，我又覺得佢好勁喎！即係點解呢啲人物完全喺翻晒度扣翻實？嘅全部啲關係，但係成件事唔同咗嘅。仲有啲神來之筆嘅喎，嗰個粵劇嘅曲同埋詞都係佢作嘅。
你講緊係阿老細啊嘛？
真係好犀利啊！真係
好多時咧，你喺人前可能即係笑啊，或者喊到，你翻到屋企咧，你都需要人撐嘅。咁嗰個咧，我就想即係睇下你頭先有提過你老公啦。咁嗰個咧，我就想即係睇下你頭先有提過你老公啦。佢喺心靈上面係點樣可以支援？到你咧？係
其實佢係一個另一個世界嘅人嚟嘅。如果你講工作方面嘅嘢，即係或者其他所有嘅嘢，你想同佢呻下咁咧，佢個反應唔係同一般人嘅。即係佢可能佢緘默好耐，你需要嘅時間，你都冇一啲安慰啊，或者係 comfort 你啊，都冇嘅。如果你話佢係一個膊頭，你覺得需要佢嗰陣時啊，佢因為大家同埋嗰行啦，佢可以即刻俾到安慰你咧，咁就你好多時會失望。但係當我同佢拖住手到而家30幾年啦，我同佢拖住手到而家30幾年啦，行去譬如我哋去海邊，佢總係中意拖住我一齊行嘅。
哇，好 sweet！
咁呢啲即係到而家呢個年紀同埋結咗婚咁耐咧，咁我又覺得之前我所唔中意嘅嘢，死撐住，真係唔得，我要放棄嘅嘢，呢啲都過去噶啦。你就會喺即係呢個時候覺得啊，兩個人咁樣嘅關係喺而家呢個年紀呢個時候係好甜蜜嘅。 咁所以你唔會有所有嘅嘢，你有啲呢啲你已經好珍惜啦，應該係你有啲呢啲你已經好珍惜啦，應該係咪啊？好去享受啦，其他冇嘅嘢唔好諗啦，佢嚟到先算啦。咁但係我又好好彩，我諗我有個女啦，我細女而家讀完晒書之後翻，我細女而家讀完晒書之後翻嚟香港同我一齊住，我反而係覺得我中咗頭獎都冇咁高興。
哦，係啊，
係啊。佢好甜㗎呢個女，但係佢你唔會覺得佢作啲嘢嚟氹你喎。但係你唔會覺得佢作啲嘢嚟氹你喎。佢係你喺你需要嘅時候，佢就好多支持俾你嘅。你做啲任何嘅嘢，佢都會鼓勵你，話俾你聽，媽咪你做得好好，你唔好對自己咁苛刻啊，你已經好夠㗎啦咁樣。譬如好似啱啱過個母親節啦，我今年嘅母親節好特別，好甜蜜嘅一個母親節，但係我一個 post 都冇。點解咧？我唔想影相啊！我想喺晒個腦裏邊嗰一刻我享受就算啦，好好啊，
活在當下，活在當下，享受當下。
唔再影相啦，影相唔使 share 啦，我自己享受晒得啦。咁就一醒咗，我個女就做咗個好精彩嘅早餐，寫咗一個我叫情信啊，俾我貼咗喺個雪櫃度，講俾我聽佢有幾 appreciate 同埋幾愛我。哇！我突然間覺得原來所有嘅愛情故事，男女之間嘅都係微不足道㗎。呢一個情信，我年年母親節都會收㗎，但係甜到咧，你覺得嗱，呢個咪係投資咗落去個回報啊！呢個咪最大個回報咯，咁樣係甜，好甜啦！我真係好
幸運，好幸福喎！因為我本來都想問咧，無論係你老公啦，又或者阿女啦，佢哋係一種軟撐定話係硬撐？即係軟撐咧，係陰啲嚇，即係可能係整個早餐俾你食嗰種咧，喺個生活嘅細節裏面滲啲，硬撐啊，媽咪 ，yes you are the best 嗰啲咁樣。似乎你阿女同阿老公兩樣都有嘅喎，係
特別我諗
问题，我想很多人也会好奇，那中国是怎样一步一步的成为当今的这个人口大国呢？
是有很多方面的原因的。首先，我们可以先来了解一下地理和历史的背景。中国的国土面积很广，大部分处于温带，降水量比较适中，河流湖泊呢也有很多，而且也拥有众多的平原，所以是比较适合人类居住以及农业的生产发展的。但是由于古代天灾和战乱频发，所以中国2、3千年间的人口数一直是维持在多了5、6千万，最多1个亿左右，少了2、3千万，最少1000万左右的状态。
这么少？
对的。
其实我一直以为中国几千年以来一直人口都是多的，没想到才这么一点人。我有点震惊。
对，它也是有一个发展的过程，而且一开始我们的中国版图也没有那么大，所以人口肯定也不会有那么多的繁衍的空间。
对啊，
所以呢，人口真正开始激增呢，是在清朝时期，也就是从差不多17世纪中叶开始。当时的统治者逐步平定各方的政权和战乱，实现了全国的统一。那尤其是在康熙、雍正、乾隆的时期，综合国力非常强盛，除了几次比较大的对外战争以外，整个中国广大腹地是维持了近150多年的和平期。那这在历史上是比较罕见的，而长期和平稳定的社会生活为人口的繁衍增长创造了条件。 而且当时的清政府还实施了摊丁入亩的税收政策，它不再收人头税，而是收摊丁入亩的税收政策，它不再收人头税，而是收财产税，因为不再是生多少个孩子就要交多少个人的税，百姓呢就不再瞒报家里人口的情况，要交多少个人的税，百姓呢就不再瞒报家里人口的情况，少个人的税，百姓呢就不再瞒报家里人口的情况，而且民间呢也开始鼓励生育，毕竟在增加劳动力的同时还不用交税，也开始鼓励生育，毕竟在增加劳动力的同时还不用交税。
所以在清朝以前，政府是收人头税的吗？
用交税。
所以在清朝以前，政府是收人头税的吗？
是的，对。
哦，那这样说清朝政府还挺好的嘛。
他的这样的一个政策真的是，从制度上影响了社会人口的发展。
有贡献。
是的，是的。那我们其实会感到疑惑，就是说，可耕种的土地面积是有限的，那要怎么养活越来越多的人口呢？
对啊。
其实在清朝时期呢，从美洲引进的高产农作物，例如红薯时期呢，从美洲引进的高产农作物，例如红薯、玉米和花生，就已经被得到了推广和种植。那这些农作物既可以在不太适宜像水稻和小麦生长的土地上进行耕种，适宜像水稻和小麦生长的土地上进行耕种，又比大米这些当时主要的农作物出产量要高很多，而且还可以被用作主食。所以呢，清朝时期的粮食总产量是大幅度增加做主食。所以呢，清朝时期的粮食总产量是大幅度增加的，这就为养活众多人口提供了必要的物质基础。大幅度增加的，这就为养活众多人口提供了必要的物质基础。
所以就是和平，没有战乱，而且多生孩子不用交税，加上当时的粮食产量在增加，所以这个就导致了在清朝时期我们人口激增。
对，所以说呢，中国的人口数量是从清朝初期的3000万左右，在之后的200多年间，一下增长到了清末时期的4亿多人。
哇哦！
一下增长到了清末时期的4亿多人。
哇哦！
它是一个很大很大的跨越，我当时在了解到之后也是被震惊到了。另外一个关于中国能够成是在了解到之后也是被震惊到了。另外一个关于中国能够成为世界人口第1大国的因素呢，就是取决于农业的一个发展的原因。因为我们知道农业的发展和延续是需要大量的劳动力的。所以在古代家庭，他们很多会选择生非常多的孩子，来弥补劳动力不足这么一个问题。而且我们知道，在过去的时候，医疗条件是比较落后的，而且卫生条件也差，所以很多出生的孩子比较难能够长大成人，并且有些男孩还会遇上强制的兵役或者劳役，所以当时的人口男孩还会遇上强制的兵役或者劳役，所以当时的人口死亡率是比较高的。那中国呢，自古以来又有养儿防老的传统高的。那中国呢，自古以来又有养儿防老的传统，所以在医疗条件有限的情况下，人们会主动的选择多生一些孩子。所以在医疗条件有限的情况下，人们会主动的选择多生一些孩子，就是想要确保至少能有1个孩子能够长大成人，而且最好是男孩儿，这样可以来延续香火，让年老的父母有所男孩儿，这样可以来延续香火，让年老的父母有所依靠。那另外一个比较重要的因素呢，是关于养孩子的成本。在以前呢，生活在社会比较重要的因素呢，是关于养孩子的成本。在以前呢，生活在社会底层的
Hey, Immersion. Welcome back again. Yeah, 4-day streak. It's going to be a Yeah, I'm pretty much just gonna be streaming every time I study. It's just gonna be every day in this case.
Chưa phải giải ba nhầm ít thôi, chưa phải giải ba nhầm thì thôi mọi người ít thôi, chưa phải giải ba nhầm thì thôi mọi người.
Oh, oh yeah, always gotta be consistent. Yeah, for a language learner, you can't miss a single day. Honestly, you gotta treat it like a daily routine, especially when you brush your teeth. It's the same kind of thing.
Người rất là vui với lại cái ít thôi, chưa phải giải ba nhầm thì thôi mọi người rất là vui với lại cái một cái chiến thắng đó, xong đó là mình mới quả quyết là mình phải
chiến thắng,
cái một cái chiến thắng đó, xong đó là mình mới quả quyết là mình phải cái một cái chiến thắng đó, xong đó là mình mới quả quyết là mình phải lên đường thôi, mình phải đi học cái ngành này và mình tìm một hồi thì mình phải lên đường thôi, mình phải đi học cái ngành này và mình tìm một hồi thì mình thấy là ở Sydney thì có một trường dạy ngành gọi là mình thấy là ở Sydney thì có một trường dạy ngành gọi là Arts Management. Bây giờ thì đổi tên thành là Creative Industry rồi. Nhưng mà thời đó nghe cái tên kêu lắm. Gọi là Arts Management, Bachelor of Arts, tên kêu lắm. Gọi là Arts Management, Bachelor of Arts mà major in Arts Management có nghĩa là quản lý nghệ thuật. Thì mình nhìn cái chương trình mà mình management có nghĩa là quản lý nghệ thuật. Thì mình nhìn cái chương trình mà mình phải học cái này thôi. Mình phải xin ba mẹ cho học cái này thôi. Xong sau đó ba mẹ thuyết phục ngược lại mình. Ba mẹ cũng nói là cái con đường này nghe nó nguy hiểm quá, nghe nó chông chênh quá, không có vững, nguy hiểm quá, nghe nó chông chênh quá, không có vững. Và bằng một cách nào đó thì ba mẹ thuyết phục là mình đi dạy đi, bởi vì ba mẹ thấy mình dạy được mà, mình tiếng Anh mình có nè, và mình ngày xưa mình cũng nói là mình có ước mơ là mình muốn đi dạy, và thời sinh viên cũng có đi dạy kèm có ước mơ là mình muốn đi dạy, và thời sinh viên cũng có đi dạy kèm một hai bạn sinh viên khác, thì mình đi dạy đi, mình học gọi là Bachelor of Education, học teaching. Ok, mình đăng ký mình cũng đổi ngành luôn, và teaching. Ok, mình đăng ký mình cũng đổi ngành luôn, và không hiểu tại sao khi mà em apply vào cái ngành đó của cái trường đó, mà cái trường đó là cái trường là gần như là tỷ lệ mà được đậu application là rất là cao, 90 mấy %, mà lúc đó mình lại bị từ chối application của mình. Và gần như là số tất cả rất nhiều người đã hỗ trợ mình làm hồ sơ đó đều thắc mắc là, và gần như là số tất cả rất nhiều người đã hỗ trợ mình làm hồ sơ đó đều thắc mắc là tại sao lại từ chối, bởi vì mình cũng không xin học bổng, mình chỉ xin để học cái ngành đó thôi và mình có đủ điều kiện hết. Bởi vì mình cũng không xin học bổng, mình chỉ xin để học. Tại sao lại từ chối? Bởi vì mình cũng không xin học bổng, mình chỉ xin để học cái ngành đó thôi và mình có đủ điều kiện hết. Mà sau đó thì lại từ chối cái đó. Học cái ngành đó thôi và mình có đủ điều kiện hết. Mà sau đó thì lại từ chối cái đó của mình. Và thế là em nói ba mẹ là con phải học ngành này thôi. That's it. Và em học xong rồi thì yeah. Đó cũng là cái bước đầu của em trong cái hành trình mà em đi theo cái con đường về sáng tạo. Cái hành trình học 3 năm ở Sydney đó của em, nó dẫn em lần lượt đi từ sự kiện này đến sự kiện khác. Chính vì học ngành học đó mà em mới được bén duyên với ngành phim. Từ cái ngành phim đó bắt đầu lan ra những cái mối duyên khác. Và tầm cỡ năm 2018, 2019 đó bắt đầu lan ra những cái mối duyên khác. Và tầm cỡ năm 2018, 2019 là em về nước, 2018 em về nước. Và tới 2021 thì em vẫn khoe với ba mẹ là con đi dạy rồi nè.
với
Nước 2018 em về nước. Và tới 2021 thì em vẫn khoe với ba mẹ là con đi dạy rồi nè. Con vẫn đi dạy. Em vẫn dạy theo dạng thỉnh giảng chuyên gia ở một vài trường đại học. Và em vẫn thấy là ok, cái dạy nó vẫn là một cái mà mình rất là thích. Và em làm song song rất là nhiều thứ với nhau. Nhưng mà dạy về sáng tạo, dạy về làm song song rất là nhiều thứ với nhau. Nhưng mà dạy về sáng tạo, dạy về con chữ, đó là cái mà em rất là đam mê.
Có xem được mấy video.
Yeah.
Lucas có những cái khóa dạy về kể chuyện. xem được mấy video.
Yeah.
Lucas có những cái khóa dạy về kể chuyện. Chị muốn hỏi một chút, vẫn cái câu chuyện cha mẹ mình.
Yeah.
Hồi đó em dùng cái hình ảnh rất là hay là một cái con đường nó thênh thang, có nhiều người đi. Nhưng mình cũng hiểu là tại sao lúc đấy phải cần có nhiều người đi. Ví dụ những cuộc chiến tranh cần sự đoàn kết. Phải cần có nhiều người đi. Ví dụ những cuộc chiến tranh cần sự đoàn kết. Những cái mục tiêu xây dựng đất nước cần tất cả mọi đồng lòng. Cần tất cả mọi đồng lòng. Chị tò mò là trong cái thế hệ cây lược đi, mặc dù chị phát hiện có một người thế hệ cũ nhưng rất trong cái thế hệ cây lược đi, mặc dù chị phát hiện có một người thế hệ cũ nhưng mặc dù chị phát hiện có một người thế hệ cũ nhưng rất là cây lược, đấy là bà Xuân Phượng. Tức là bà cũng làm những cái ngành nó rất là sâu ở cái thời đó, rất là sâu ở cái thời đó, nên vẫn có những ngoại lệ. Tuy nhiên với thế hệ trẻ bây giờ, cái mục tiêu lớn mà khiến cho mọi người Tuy nhiên với thế hệ trẻ bây giờ, cái mục tiêu lớn mà khiến cho mọi người có thể đồng lòng thì có thể là gì? Chị biết nó không phải là một cái câu hỏi đơn giản, đúng không?
Em cũng trăn trở vì đó rất nhiều. Bởi vì nếu mà những người làm sáng tạo, những người làm nội dung, những người làm content, những người làm phim mà biết được điều gì làm cho thế hệ trẻ đồng lòng, thì chắc chắn là những sản phẩm làm ra sẽ rất là đồng lòng. Thì chắc chắn là những sản phẩm làm ra sẽ rất là thắng lớn. Em nghĩ vậy. Nó vẫn là một ẩn số. Em đã đi rất là nhiều vậy. Nó vẫn là một ẩn số. Em đã đi rất là nhiều những cái buổi research, những buổi R&D, những buổi thảo luận của những team phát triển dự án. Thì một trong những câu hỏi mọi người hỏi luôn là bây giờ Gen Z quan tâm đến điều gì? Nỗi đau của các bạn nằm ở đâu? Và điều gì là điều làm các bạn trăn trở? Của các bạn nằm ở đâu? Và điều gì là điều làm các bạn trăn trở? Của các bạn nằm ở đâu? Và điều gì là điều làm các bạn trăn trở? Thực sự là em cũng không thể nào nói thay cho các bạn được. Nhưng mà khi mà em nhìn vào những cái mà đang làm cho các bạn rung động, những cái mà em nhìn vào những cái mà đang làm cho các bạn rung động, những cái mà làm cho các bạn bị thổn thức và khiến cho các bạn phải chia sẻ, các bạn bị thổn thức và khiến cho các bạn phải chia sẻ cái nỗi niềm của mình, thì em nghĩ đó là những câu chuyện về những người nobody. Cái em nghĩ là làm cho các bạn đồng lòng, và bản thân em cũng trải qua cái em nghĩ là làm cho các bạn đồng lòng, và bản thân em cũng trải qua cái cảm xúc đó luôn. Đó là cảm xúc khi mình là một nobody. Hôm nay nói chuyện với chị Minh, nhưng mà cách đây 2 ngày em xem một cái phim đang rất là hot ở ngoài rạp, đó là phim Tiểu Yêu đang rất là hot ở ngoài rạp, đó là phim Tiểu Yêu Quái Núi Lãng Lãng, và tựa tiếng Anh của nó là Nobody. Thì em cảm thấy nó chạm đến mình cực kỳ. Nó làm mình nhìn thấy được cả một cái hành trình của mình, cả một cái tuổi. Nó làm mình nhìn thấy được cả một cái hành trình của mình, cả một cái tuổi thơ của mình, và em nghĩ là rất nhiều người nhìn thấy mình ở trong đó. Bởi vì chúng ta lớn lên
el gesto también cambiará. Cuando una mujer cruza las piernas es porque culturalmente, socialmente, se la ha entrenado para que cruce las piernas, o como un hombre que realmente, socialmente, cuando una mujer cruza las piernas cambiará. Cuando una mujer cruza las piernas es porque culturalmente, socialmente, se la ha entrenado para que cruce las piernas, o como un hombre que las va a hacer esa apertura, pero cuando las cruce tampoco quiere decir que esté ocultando algo.
Nada que ver. De hecho, mira, el cruce
esa apertura, pero cuando las cruce tampoco las va a hacer esa apertura, pero cuando las cruce tampoco quiere decir que esté ocultando algo.
Nada que ver. De hecho, mira, el cruce de piernas que se puede leer debe de leerse en el momento en el que se produce. El cruce de piernas que se puede leer debe de leerse en el momento en el que se produce, justo en el momento en el que se produce. No ir a un sitio y ver que la gente está con las piernas cruzadas, porque tienes que ver qué ha ocurrido justo antes del cruce de piernas, porque además también puede ser un cruce de piernas justo antes del cruce de piernas, porque además también puede ser un cruce de piernas postural. Es decir, llevo 1 hora con la pierna derecha sobre piernas postural. Es decir, llevo 1 hora con la pierna derecha sobre la izquierda, se me ha dormido ya y me voy a cambiar. No tiene nada interpretable, ni mucho menos. Ahora bien, si acabo de cruzar las piernas, estamos interactuando, reviene alguien por mi izquierda, me dice algo que estamos interactuando, reviene alguien por mi izquierda, me dice algo que a lo mejor me puede gustar o no, y cambio el cruce de pierna, pues a lo mejor me puede gustar o no, y cambio el cruce de pierna, pues a lo mejor ahí, si lo sumamos otros gestos, sí lo que podíamos interpretar. Si lo sumamos otros gestos, sí lo que podíamos interpretar. Fíjate, a mí el cruce de piernas me gusta mucho valorarlo de pie. O sea, no cuando estamos en cruce de piernas me gusta mucho valorarlo de pie. O sea, no cuando estamos sentados. Es decir, cuando yo estoy hablando con alguien y se cruza de piernas, estamos sentados. Es decir, cuando yo estoy hablando con alguien y se cruza de piernas, es decir, hace este típico cruce, me gusta verlo, porque es una situación muy positiva.
Muy positiva, el cruce de piernas así.
Sí, cuando estamos de pie, sí. Mira, si tú estuvieras en una situación de peligro, además te voy a contar algo que me ha Si tú estuvieras en una situación de peligro, además te voy a contar algo que me ha pasado hace poco. Si tú estuvieras en una situación de peligro, tú no cruzas las piernas. Tu cerebro no te permite, porque si tienes que salir corriendo, cruzas las piernas. Tu cerebro no te permite, porque si tienes que salir corriendo te vas a caer. Mira, hace poco fui a Tenerife a dar una formación, unas cuantas formaciones, y fui con un psicólogo de emergencias. Estamos en el avión a punto de, perdón, a punto de aterrizar, y hago así. Estamos en el avión a punto de, perdón, a punto de aterrizar, y hago así. Me dice, ¿qué haces? Digo, es que estamos a punto de aterrizar y hay un señor con las piernas cruzadas y no me cuadra. Me dice, ¿por qué? Digo, porque un señor con las piernas cruzadas y no me cuadra. Me dice, ¿por qué? Digo, porque cuando nuestro cerebro interpreta que estamos en una situación de peligro, no. Porque cuando nuestro cerebro interpreta que estamos en una situación de peligro, no permite tener las piernas cruzadas. No podemos tener las piernas cruzadas. Es que no podemos. O sea, tenemos la necesidad de situar los pies bien pegados al suelo, suelo, para sentir esa posición de seguridad. Y según empezábamos a bajar, descruzó las piernas y todo el mundo con las piernas normales. Y le hizo mucha gracia, me diciendo, ¿cómo lo sabías? Y digo, bueno, no tiene mérito, es que es lo que hacemos, es lo que solemos hacer. Digo, de hecho, es raro ver una persona que cuando despeguemos o cuando vayamos a aterrizar cruce las piernas. Lo que solemos hacer. Digo, de hecho, es raro ver una persona que cuando despeguemos o cuando vayamos a aterrizar cruce las piernas. Pues una persona que tenga que volar o vayamos a aterrizar cruce las piernas. Pues una persona que tenga que volar 4 veces a la semana y ya tenga tal habituación que digas, es algo más, pero es
semana,
4 veces a la semana y ya tenga tal habituación que digas, es algo más, pero es raro, es muy raro.
Qué barbaridad esto.
Es raro, es muy raro.
Qué barbaridad esto. Yo pensaba que era todo lo contrario.
Yo también
Claro,
lo pensaba.
cruzar
También lo pensaba.
era incomodidad, era cerrar la postura, era...
Puede ocurrir, o sea, puede ser una cerrazón, si además hay un cruce de brazos, está contra la pared, la mirada está hacia abajo, cruce de brazos, está contra la pared, la mirada está hacia abajo, pero normalmente cuando hay una conversación e interacción es porque las personas están bien, están a gusto. Yo también pensaba que era algo negativo, hasta que me demostraron lo contrario, efectivamente.
Qué barbaridad.
Demostraron lo contrario, efectivamente.
Qué barbaridad. De hecho, otra anécdota que me gustaría compartir contigo. Tenía una expareja, madre mía, la menciono en cada podcast, la gente pensará que, ostras, madre mía, la menciono en cada podcast, la gente pensará que, ostras, pero que era bajita, ¿no? Era bajita y le costaba hacerse, era bajita, ¿no? Era bajita y le costaba hacerse escuchar. Era bajita, ¿no? Era bajita y le costaba hacerse escuchar. Le costaba hacerse respetar. Y sobre todo cuando había un chico de su clase, de su universidad, que hablaba y hablaba y hablaba y hablaba y hablaba y no paraba de hablar, y tú hablabas, no paraba de hablar, y tú hablabas, y él tenía que decir algo más inteligente. De hecho, en la Sorbonne, que había esos egos académicos y demás, y coge, de hecho, en la Sorbonne, que había esos egos académicos y demás, y coge, y un día estaba harta, estaban ahí hablando, yo lo miraba desde la distancia, porque me encanta mirar, ella bien enfadada y dices que Adrián no me escucha, me encanta mirar, ella bien enfadada y dices que Adrián no me escuchan, Adrián estoy harta, que no me respeten. Digo, mira, vas a hacer lo siguiente, ¿vale? Vamos a hacer un experimento. Tú vas a volver a ir allí, vas a integrar la conversación, él te va a seguir hablando como siempre hace, porque yo le dije, a él le gustas, esa es la realidad, que es que luego surgió, le digo, a él le gustas, por eso habla tanto, para recibir esa validación de que él es inteligente. Pero eso habla tanto para recibir esa validación de que él es inteligente. Pero eso ya lo descubrirás. No estamos aquí para eso. Le digo, vas a ir ahí, pero eso ya lo descubrirás. No estamos aquí para eso. Le digo, vas a ir ahí y cuando empiece a hablar y tú quieras hablar, simplemente cuando empiece a hablar y tú quieras hablar, simplemente vas a posicionar tu mano encima de su hombro. Y ahí vas a hablar. Verás cómo calla ipso facto y podrás hablar tanto tiempo como tú quieras, no te va a interrumpir. No pasará, tal, no sé qué, no se va a dejar un nombre alto. Hizo eso, ¡puf! Cayó ipso facto, todo el mundo se cayó escuchándola y flipó. Hizo eso, ¡puf! Cayó ipso facto, todo el mundo se cayó escuchándola y flipó. Luego, por cuestiones de la vida, lo tuvimos que dejar un tiempo y él, evidentemente, luego vino a buscar su amor, que luego ella ya me dijo, tenías razón, yo no me lo creía. Yo, pero es que todo está ahí, yo no me lo creía. Yo, pero es que todo está ahí. El cuerpo habla, los gestos hablan, las intenciones hablan, y hay esa información en gestos hablan, las intenciones hablan, y hay esa información encubierta.
Sí, y sobre todo en seducción y en galanteo. Somos verdaderos animales. Y sobre todo en seducción y en galanteo. Somos verdaderos animales súper predecibles.
Porque hay tanta emoción que se nota. Por ejemplo,
súper predecibles.
Porque hay tanta emoción que se nota. Por ejemplo, a ver qué opinas de eso. Hablabas de la gente que se gusta y no se gusta. En una conversación se dice, y ya me verificarás si es así, en un grupo, cuando se dice, y ya me verificarás si es así, en un grupo, cuando está, por ejemplo, tu pareja o una persona hablando una historia, buscará la mirada de esa persona que le gusta. ¿No es así?
Pero cuidado, es así. Puede ser la persona que le...
O nome Dragon Ball não está no ideograma, mas está escrito Dragon Ball, sabe? Eu acho muito engraçado com certas coisas que vão, né? Sabe? Eu acho muito engraçado com certas coisas que vão, né? E passam.
Eu acho engraçado no francês também, porque tem essa coisa de não, eu acho engraçado no francês também, porque tem essa coisa de não, o francês protege a própria língua, não gosta nem que turista fale inglês, a própria língua, não gosta nem que turista fale inglês. É nada. E eles, é engraçado, eles pronunciam muita coisa do inglês de maneira afrancesada, né? Eu morei na França em 2011 e eu ouvia muito rádio. Morei na França em 2011 e eu ouvia muito rádio e eu demorava para entender o que eles estavam falando, porque eles falam Katy Perry e não Katy Perry.
Nossa, sei.
Lady Gaga.
Sei.
Então, a pronúncia era muito assim. Eu fui como au pair, eu morava com uma família, eu ia ajudar as crianças a estudarem, para mim muita coisa era assim... Era difícil de entender quando eram nomes, porque eles estavam fazendo uma pronúncia que não era familiar. Mas eles usam muito a palavra do inglês no dia a dia, misturado no francês, assim, palavras que no meu julgamento não seriam necessárias, mas então é isso, os caminhos seriam necessários, mas então é isso, os caminhos dessa troca, eles vão ser muito variados, alguns vão fazer sentido pra gente, outros não.
E como é que uma coisa que eu gosto muito de ler a respeito é neologismo, né? Tipo, pô, tu inventar uma palavra do vácuo, né? Então, Então a gente tem, por exemplo, acho que do ano passado de Oxford foi o brain rot, né? Então, como é que a gente esse processo de inventa? Quando é que uma palavra criada, inventada, ela é tornada oficial, assim?
A gente inventa todas as palavras, né? Tudo que a gente tem nunca teve assim um ponto inicial. As palavras vão ser tudo que a gente tem nunca teve assim um ponto inicial. As palavras vão sendo inventadas naturalmente, e aí tem o processo de oficialização. Então, existem os lexicógrafos, que são especialistas em dicionários, em palavras, e para uma palavra ser tornada oficial, parte oficial do vocabulário, ela tem que sobreviver na fala das pessoas por determinado tempo e ter um número X de ocorrências. Então, assim, às vezes uma novela inventa um termo, falciane, acho que surgiu em novela. Podia ser um modismo que durasse um tempo e depois desaparecesse, mas ele foi tão usado mas ele foi tão usado e tão retomado que ele passou a ser dicionarizado. Então, acho que não tem uma recorrência fixa, mas existe aqui no Brasil, né, o VOLP, que é Vocabulário Ortográfico da Língua Portuguesa. Ele é uma ferramenta, é como se fosse um dicionário, mas sem a língua portuguesa. Ele é uma ferramenta, é como se fosse um dicionário, mas sem as definições, né? Então é só o vocabulário. É feito pela Academia Brasileira de Letras, tem lá o site, e aí de tempos em tempos eles liberam uma notícia com a listagem das palavras que foram adicionadas. Gordofobia, uma palavra que foi adicionada recentemente. Então muita coisa surge porque o conceito surge. A gente já tinha outras fobias, o conceito surge. A gente já tinha outras fobias, mas não se falava em fobia à pessoa gorda. Então passa a existir a pessoa gorda. Então passa a existir isso, poderia passar, poderia ser uma moda pessoa gorda. Então passa a existir isso, poderia passar, poderia ser uma moda e ir embora. Mas isso foi moda e ir embora. Mas isso foi tão usado, foi tão passou a ser parte do vocabulário de fato das pessoas, e aí o uso faz dele um termo que vai ser reconhecido oficialmente. Então, assim, quando a gente diz que os falantes mandam na língua, é porque, de fato, é o uso que vai sinalizar se uma coisa fica ou não. Não adianta muito querer levar para... ou não. Não adianta muito querer levar para discussão com deputados se pode... ou não. Não adianta muito querer levar para discussão com deputados se pode linguagem neutra ou não, porque linguagem neutra ou não, porque não é ninguém que vai tomar a decisão de poder ou não poder. Quer dizer, a decisão de oficializar como algo aceito pela gramática, sim. Mas para existir ou não,
Precisa
ou
de
os
ser usado.
falantes vão aderir ou não. Vão aderir ou não.
Eu trouxe um dado aqui. Hoje a gente tem 25 projetos de lei. Uma loucura, né? 25. Em tramitação que buscam proibir a linguagem neutra. Em tramitação que buscam proibir a linguagem neutra. E essa é uma questão também que afeta muita gente também, né? Muita gente fica incomodada. Também que afeta muita gente também, né? Muita gente fica incomodada, tal. Também que afeta muita gente também, né? Muita gente fica incomodada, tal, com a questão da linguagem neutra. Eu, particularmente, não sou muito fã. Já tive que apresentar a questão da linguagem neutra. Eu, particularmente, não sou muito fã. Já tive que participar de um evento em linguagem neutra. Top Torturas, participar de um evento em linguagem neutra. Top Torturas da minha vida. Porque acho que ninguém sabia. E aqui, gente, eu sei, deixa o convidado falar, eu vou só fazer uma aspas aqui que é importante. O convidado fala, eu vou só fazer uma aspas aqui que é importante. Era um evento de influenciador. Era no auge, assim, 2017, acho. No auge, 18. No auge desse rolê de linguagem neutra, diversidade e tudo mais. E é um evento diferentão de influenciador, resolveu que ia fazer um evento online só em linguagem neutra. E aí, evento online só em linguagem neutra. E aí, a própria apresentadora, provavelmente ela fez um media training, treinou e ela tava indo super bem. O problema é que os convidados que entravam pra falar, porra, fudeu. Meu, era loucura, era triste, porque as pessoas não conseguiam expressar uma ideia.
Nossa.
Eu não sei de nada, eu não sei de nada. Eu não sei de nada, eu não sei de nada.
Oh, thanks, Immersion. I'm guessing you're head out, but if it's true, then hope you have a good day. Yeah, thank you very much.
Eu não sei de nada, eu não sei de nada. Nada, não sei. Então as pessoas não conseguiam Então ficava uma loucura, porque a pessoa que não é treinada a falar em linguagem neutra, ela não tem a menor ideia de como falar aquilo. E aí você bota que o evento é em linguagem neutra. Cara, foi assim, uma das coisas mais patéticas que eu já vi. E simplesmente o conteúdo ele foi completamente podado frente à necessidade de adequar uma agenda daquele evento, que é o passo de que eu olho e falo assim, tá, mas quem foi favorecido, assim? A quem favoreceu isso daqui? E tu olhava nas pessoas que estão participando ali no Meet e assim, não tinha ninguém trans. Aí você fala assim, peraí.
Ninguém.
Não tinha ninguém. pô, não tinha ninguém trans. Aí você fala assim, pô, peraí. Será que a gente tem um não binário aqui? Será que a pessoa não binária, ela entendeu, esclareceu? Então, foi um momento pra mim até... Entendeu, esclareceu? Então, foi um momento pra mim até meio constrangedor esse evento. Graças a Deus, nunca mais teve outro parecido. Constrangedor esse evento. Graças a Deus, nunca mais teve outro parecido. Mas essa questão de linguagem neutra, ela é realmente muito polêmica também, né? A questão de linguagem neutra, ela é realmente muito polêmica também, né? De certa forma, né?
É muito polêmico porque é visto como imposição. Eu acho que essa imposição não...
Siamo ancora a fine gennaio, inizio febbraio.
Esatto.
Con il racconto abbiamo contattato il muratore per sistemare.
Sì, perché appunto c'erano questi lavoretti da fare e inizialmente avevamo pensato di farli noi.
Ah, è vero.
Poi
è vero.
ti ricordi? Perché comunque sì, è una cosa che avremmo potuto fare, ma
Sì.
ci vuole tempo, ci avremmo messo il triplo del tempo rispetto a un muratore. Nel frattempo comunque poi dovevamo lavorare e quindi abbiamo detto no, cerchiamo una persona che faccia questo per noi. E abbiamo trovato una brava persona, siamo stati molto contenti. Quindi diciamo da questo punto di vista è andato tutto bene. Molto contenti. Quindi diciamo da questo punto di vista è andato tutto bene. Però abbiamo avuto un po' di intoppi per altre cose. Per esempio per l'elettricità, perché per attivare una nuova utenza c'è bisogno di un codice, che qui in Italia si chiama POD, ma non era possibile rintracciare questo codice e per varie ragioni. Quindi insomma ho dovuto attivare una procedura ufficiale mandando delle email mandando delle foto.
Con il fornitore di energia elettrica.
E questo naturalmente ha portato via tempo.
No, il problema è che prima di tutto le persone che sono state in questo ufficio precedentemente non sono state più rintracciabili.
Esatto.
E quindi non abbiamo potuto rintracciare una bolletta precedente per ricavare questo codice. Una bolletta precedente per ricavare questo codice. E in più il contatore dell'energia, che pensavamo fosse quello giusto, era rotto.
Sì.
E quindi il contatore avrebbe potuto darci il codice corretto, perché è possibile visualizzare il codice sul contatore. Ma il contatore era rotto e quindi non sapevamo come ricavare questo codice. Per questo tu hai avviato la procedura. Con il fornitore.
Esatto.
E poi abbiamo scoperto che
Ci hanno fatto attivare l'utenza sul contatore sbagliato. Non per colpa nostra. Ci hanno fatto attivare l'utenza sul contatore sbagliato, non per colpa nostra però. E quindi il contatore sbagliato, non per colpa nostra però. E quindi anche questa è stata una cosa che in realtà hanno risolto abbastanza velocemente, nel giro di pochi giorni.
E quindi il contatore reale, quello funzionante, c'era.
Sì.
Avremmo potuto prendere il codice da quel contatore se avessimo saputo che era quello giusto. Prendere il codice da quel contatore se avessimo saputo che era quello giusto.
Però a monte c'era stato un errore, non fatto da noi, e questo naturalmente ha allungato i tempi per poter avere la fornitura della luce. E questo è stato il primo piccolo problema, perché poi anche per attivare internet abbiamo avuto un problema. Sì, perché naturalmente noi abbiamo bisogno della fibra. Qui avevamo verificato che arrivasse la fibra, perché non arriva ancora in tutte le aree della città, ma qui sì, per fortuna. Però quando il tecnico è venuto voleva attivarla nell'ufficio qui di Francesco, ma non era possibile. E quindi è dovuto venire la settimana successiva per attivarlo dal mio ufficio, ma hanno dovuto venire la settimana successiva per attivarlo dal mio ufficio, ma hanno dovuto bucare il muro per collegarsi ad una centralina esterna.
Sì, perché
Dovuto bucare il muro per collegarsi ad una centralina esterna.
sì, perché collegandosi direttamente all'impianto del palazzo, non avremmo avuto la fibra
Esatto.
completa. Invece, bucando l'ufficio di Giulia, uscendo del cortile,
Esatto.
collegandosi alla centralina, era possibile avere la fibra.
Quindi
Collegandosi alla centralina era possibile avere la fibra.
Quindi naturalmente anche questo ha portato via tempo.
Aspetta, è venuto il tecnico la prima volta e mi ha detto che non era possibile
Esatto.
attivare la fibra qui. Io quindi ho fissato un appuntamento per la settimana
vero.
dopo e non si è
Non si è
presentato
presentato
nessuno.
nessuno. Ecco perché è stata molto lunga la cosa.
E
Presentato nessuno. Ecco perché è stata molto lunga la cosa.
E quindi ho fissato un altro appuntamento, ma per...
Fissato.
E quindi ho fissato un altro appuntamento, ma per
Esatto,
2 o 3 settimane dopo.
È vero. Sono passati diversi mesi, quindi i dettagli io li ho dimenticati. È vero. Sono passati diversi mesi, quindi i dettagli io li ho dimenticati.
Sì, anche perché io ho mandato un'email a tutti gli iscritti dicendo abbiamo trovato un ufficio, a febbraio e siamo entrati adesso. Quindi le peripezie ci sono state. Un po' per appunto l'elettricità, per internet. Poi è arrivato il muratore.
Esatto, quindi lui ha fatto tutto quanto.
Ha sistemato tutto, i muri bianchi, puliti, tutto meraviglioso, pronto per essere arredato.
L'abbiamo arredato.
Lo abbiamo arredato, abbiamo comprato all'IKEA la libreria, la tua libreria, i mobili. Io ho comprato i pannelli fonoassorbenti che sono attaccati. Al muro per assorbire il suono.
Poi va bene un po'.
Per assorbire il suono.
Poi va bene un po' di ritardi nel montare i mobili.
Carton chez nous et ensuite Ensuite, qui ont mis les cartons dans un camion, qu'on conduit le camion jusqu'à Marseille. Non, on a tout fait nous-mêmes. Pour vous dire jusqu'à quel point on est allé en tout fait nous-mêmes. Pour vous dire jusqu'à quel point on est allé en débrouille, même les cartons. On a tout fait nous-mêmes. Pour vous dire tout fait nous-mêmes. Pour vous dire jusqu'à quel point on est allé en débrouille, même les cartons. On allait dans le centre débrouille, même les cartons. On allait dans le centre-ville de Nîmes le soir, dans le débrouille, même les cartons. On allait dans le centre-ville de Nîmes le soir, dans le centre-ville qui est une zone commerçante où il y a beaucoup de magasins. Les magasins mettent les cartons le soir devant, donc on les récupérait gratuitement, ou alors on rentrait dans les magasins et on demandait des cartons et ils nous les donnaient, tu vois. Les magasins et on demandait des cartons et ils nous les donnaient, tu vois. Donc on a fait nos cartons. Ensuite, on a loué un camion, une camionnette, je devrais dire. C'était vraiment tout petit, donc on a loué une camionnette, je devrais dire. C'était vraiment tout petit, donc on a loué une camionnette et on est venu jusqu'à Marseille. Hein.
T'as oublié
Bien
de
sûr.
dire qu'on a bien fait les choses, c'est-à-dire c'est ce qu'il faut faire. On a prévenu, c'est ce qu'il faut faire. On a prévenu la mairie, et on a demandé, on a obtenu un arrêté municipal. Donc, on a obtenu un arrêté municipal. Donc, c'est la mairie qui a dit le matin, je crois que c'était un lundi matin, entre 8h et midi. Le matin, je crois que c'était un lundi matin, entre 8h et midi, la fameuse rue où on habitait, la rue sera barrée. La fameuse rue où on habitait, la rue sera barrée, c'est-à-dire qu'elle sera interdite à la circulation et réservée à notre déménagement. Parce que, vous le savez peut-être, hein, vous qui nous écoutez, mais il y a beaucoup de rues en France qui sont très petites, très écoutez, mais il y a beaucoup de rues en France qui sont très petites, très étroites, et seule une voiture peut passer. Et c'était le cas pour nous, en fait. On avait étroite et seule une voiture peut passer. Et c'était le cas pour nous, en fait. On n'avait pas de garage, pas de place de parking, pas d'endroit pour se garer. On n'avait pas de garage, pas de place de parking, pas d'endroit pour se garer. On était obligé de bloquer la rue le temps de faire ce déménagement. Était obligé de bloquer la rue le temps de faire ce déménagement, de mettre les cartons, de charger la voiture et le petit camion. Et donc, on avait mettre les cartons, de charger la voiture et le petit camion. Et donc, on avait dû, tu te rappelles, on est allé chercher l'arrêté municipal.
Non, on l'avait imprimé.
On l'avait imprimé, c'est
C'était
ça.
fait un peu à la va-vite. On l'avait imprimé.
On l'avait imprimé, c'est
C'était
ça.
fait un peu à la va-vite. C'était pas la mairie n'avait pas réorganisé la ville pour nous. C'est juste on avait imprimé un papier et on l'avait collé sur une chaise.
Oui, mais c'était la mairie qui nous avait donné le droit. Oui, mais c'était la mairie qui nous avait donné le droit. C'était pas quelque chose d'illégal. Au contraire, c'était très bien fait. Je sais que plein de gens en France ne le font pas. Ils vont juste bloquer la route. Je sais que plein de gens en France ne le font pas. Ils vont juste bloquer la rue pendant 1 heure ou 2 heures en mettant tu sais, les warnings sur la voiture. Non, nous on a mis on a affiché vraiment ça sur une chaise et donc tous les gens devaient faire demi-tour ou prendre une autre rue pour continuer leur chemin. Donc ça c'était assez marrant et ça c'est bien fait. Donc c'est pour ça que moi j'aime bien. Finalement, je suis habitué à faire ces déménagements. J'aime bien le déménagement aussi parce que ça permet de faire le tri dans les affaires. Moi, à chaque fois que je déménage, j'aime bien faire le point et me dire bon tiens, ces vêtements j'en ai peut-être plus besoin, je vais les donner, ou j'ai trop de livres, allez, ça sert à rien de les mettre dans les cartons, je vais aussi m'en défaire,
c'est notamment
m'en débarrasser.
T'en débarrasser. Donc très très bien. C'est notamment ce qu'on avait fait quand on a quitté Madrid pour partir en Roumanie.
Pour le travail cette fois.
Pour le travail, mais vraiment ça, j'ai pas envie de dire on l'a fait pour le travail, mais vraiment ça, j'ai pas envie de dire on l'a fait par-dessus la tête parce que ça a un sens un peu négatif quand on fait quelque chose par-dessus la tête parce que ça a un sens un peu négatif quand on fait quelque chose très très rapidement.
Par-dessus la jambe aussi.
Par-dessus la jambe, on était quand même par-dessus la jambe d'ailleurs, c'est la par-dessus la jambe, on était quand même par-dessus la jambe, par-dessus la jambe, on était quand même
Par-dessus.
par-dessus la jambe, on était quand même par-dessus la jambe d'ailleurs, c'est la bonne expression, excusez-moi. Mais vraiment on était presque dans l'urgence et surtout que nous on a un chat donc il fallait enfin bref, longue histoire, mais là on était arrivé en Roumanie mais minimaliste. Je pense qu'on avait plus rien, on avait plus de livres, on avait tout qu'on avait plus rien. On n'avait plus de livres, on avait tout vendu ou tout donné.
Mais c'est vrai que c'est un peu stressant. J'aime bien parce que c'est un peu l'aventure, mais il y a du stress et j'ai un peu moins envie de déménager en ce moment.
Est-ce que tu peux nous raconter une anecdote que j'adore, que je trouve hilarante, d'un déménagement qui s'est mal passé pour toi? Malheureusement, moi, je n'étais pas là, mais ça m'aurait fait beaucoup rire, je pense, à l'époque.
Oui.
Voilà, mais ça m'aurait fait beaucoup rire, je pense, à l'époque.
Oui, eh bien, parmi, tous mes déménagements, il y en a un qui m'a oui, eh bien, parmi, tous mes déménagements, il y en a un qui m'a marqué, qui a marqué aussi, je pense, les esprits qui a marqué aussi, je pense, les esprits de mon père et de mon frère qui étaient venus me filer un coup de main, m'aider. Qui étaient venus me filer un coup de main, m'aider. J'avais 18 ah non, j'avais 20 ans. J'avais 20 ans et donc je voulais, déménager, changer d'appartement à Bordeaux, donc vraiment ça se passait à l'intérieur de la ville, hein. D'appartement à Bordeaux, donc vraiment ça se passait à l'intérieur de la ville, hein. On a fait peut-être 1 kilomètre en camion, mais j'avais quand même laissé mon appartement précédent pour emménager dans un nouveau et j'avais signé le bail, donc j'avais signé le contrat, j'avais les clés. On était au mois de juillet, il faisait super chaud à Bordeaux, le mois de juillet, c'est le pire juillet, il faisait super chaud à Bordeaux, le mois de juillet, c'est le pire mois, il fait souvent 40 degrés, il fait un peu humide aussi, c'est, pire mois, il fait souvent 40 degrés, il fait un peu humide aussi, c'est, étouffant. Mon père était venu m'aider avec mon frère un samedi après-midi parce qu'il étouffant. Mon père était venu m'aider avec mon frère un samedi après-midi parce qu'il travaillait la semaine, il avait fait un aller-retour, juste pour me filer donc il travaillait la semaine, il avait fait un aller-retour, juste pour me filer donc un coup de main. On déménage le précédent appartement, on entre dans le nouvel donc un coup de main. On déménage le précédent appartement, on entre dans le nouvel appartement, on monte 3 ou 4 étages sans ascenseur. C'était un nouvel appartement, on monte 3 ou 4 étages sans ascenseur. C'était un appartement qui était vide, qui était non meublé. Donc on avait ramené, la machine à laver, par exemple, on l'a portée à 2 ou à 3. Cette machine à laver, par exemple, on l'a portée à 2 ou à 3. On était crevés. On monte tout dans le nouvel appartement et en fait, je sais pas, on était crevés. On monte tout dans le nouvel appartement et en fait, je sais pas, en l'espace
3匹も集まってきてくれた。もしかしてふさおから聞いたの？ここに来るとご飯食べれるって。みんな順番待ちしてる。めっちゃ可愛い。みんな順番待ちしてる。めっちゃ可愛い。チュールを上手に食べる子もいれば、袋ごとガブっていっちゃう子もいるんだよね。袋ごとガブっていっちゃう子もいるんだよね。だからこういうお皿に出してからあげてます。このポーちゃん、グレーの子はめっちゃ上手に食べてくれるんだよね。で、袋もあげても、ペロペロ舐めてくれるんですよ。でもズーちゃんはダメなんだよね。ガブって手までいっちゃうから、要注意。ポーちゃん全然食べてないね。食べたいよね。3匹もいると、ちょっと待ってね。はちゃん。ズーちゃんはお皿から行こうね。ね、やばい、ズーちゃん食い意地張りすぎ。私みたいになってる。それ夕飯前の私だから。ズーダメ。やばい、持ってきたかもしれない。 やばい、モテ期来たかもしれない。めっちゃ可愛い。最後までいてくれたのはふーちゃんでした。最後までいてくれたのはふーちゃんでした。生地白かわいい。生地白かわいい。買いたい。持ち帰りたい。持ち帰りたい。ここの猫宿は里親も募集していて、みんなじゃないんですけど、ギョロちゃんとか、クロちゃんって言ってたかな。ちょっと誰か忘れちゃったんですけど、里親募集中らしいんですよ。ぜひみんな泊まりに来て、ご縁があったら引き取るのもいいかもしれないですね。私の推し、ふさおくんです。かわいい。めっちゃゴロってるじゃん。嬉しいの？抱っこはめっちゃ好きってわけじゃないんですけど、おとなしくて割と抱っこさせてくれるんですよ。まあ、ふさおとはね、いろいろ思い出ができたもんね。脱走とかね。楽しかったね。もう帰っちゃうんだよね。寂しいね。本当は連れて帰りたいんだけどね。今から猫ちゃんたちは朝ごはんタイムらしいんですけど、ここの厨房で控室で食べるらしいです。ここの厨房で控室で食べるらしいです。ここにいるのがギョロちゃんです。ギョロちゃんはちょっとコミュ障なので、なかなかアップを取らせてくれないんですけど、ちょっといいですか？ごめんね。ギョロちゃん。一番引きこもりだって聞きました。私と一緒だね。キョロちゃん、ギョロちゃん同盟。キョロ、触らせてくれ。嫌だね。ズーちゃん、はよ。ズーちゃん。ズー。あ、ポーちゃん来た。ポーちゃん。これがグレーのポーちゃんです。ポー。こちらが猫の控え室。トイレしたりご飯食べたりするところです。お、出勤ですか？頑張ってください。
食べられて、持ってるものを持ってかれるとか、そういう経験がある人ってほとんどいない。
はい。
JLPT-N3 合格おめでとうございます。JLPT-N3 合格おめでとうございます。
はい、ありがとうございます。
ねえ、どうでしたか？ JLPT-N3。
まあ、ギリギリでしたけど。そう。大丈夫でした。そう。漢字と読解結構難しかったですけど、多分リスニングは一番簡単なやつだと思います。
そうですか。
そう、まあ最近1年間ぐらいシェアハウスに住んでいますから。
そうですね。
そう。だから毎日シェアハウスの日本人の友達と 毎日シェアハウスの日本人の友達と一緒に日本語で話すから、そうリスニングは大丈夫でした。
なるほどね、そうか。まあ日本に住んでてね、周りに日本人がいるっていうのは、なるほどね、そうか。まあ日本に住んでてね、周りに日本人がいるっていうのはやっぱりね。
そうですね。
なるほどね、そうか。まあ日本に住んでてね、周りに日本人がいるっていうのはやっぱりね。
そうですね。
いいですよね。
そう。
その JLPT N3 の試験を受けたとき緊張しました。JLPT N3 の試験を受けたとき緊張しましたか？
あんまり緊張してませんでした。
あ、そう。
まあ理由は、仕事のためじゃなくて、JLPT 試験を受ける理由は、まあただの趣味です。
ああ、なるほどね。JLPT N3 に合格しなくても、まあ別に。
そう。
JLPT N3 に合格しなくても、まあ別に。
そう、別に。
何も悪いことは
ないです。英語を話すときは、グループで結構緊張してますか？
僕？
そう。
ああ、緊張。
지호도 제일 큰 언니잖아요. 지호도 제일 큰 언니잖아요.
난 안 때려.
지호 돌려차기.
보셨네.
어릴 때.
옆돌려차기 해서 동생이 맞았어요? 옆돌려차기 해서 동생이 맞았어요?
겁만 줬죠.
에이. 이거는 또 동생.
옆돌려차기 해서 동생이 맞았어요?
겁만 줬죠.
에이. 이거는 또 동생한테 넘어가시죠. 진짜.
아니 근데 원수분들이 질문을 보냈는데 정말 각국의 언어로 보내주셔가지고 읽을 수가 없었어. 진짜 너무 여러 가지 언어로 보내주시니까 그 중에서 그나마 쯔위가 시즌별로 최애 언니가 바뀐다고 하던데. 지금은 누구예요?
지금 자연 언니. 요즘 선물 해줬거든.
진짜?
제가 선물 사줬어요, 쯔위한테.
진짜 뭐 사줬어요?
에어팟.
에어팟.
제가 그거 갖고 싶다고 하니까 바로 주문하더라고요.
멋있다.
쩐다.
지효는 갖고 싶다고 안 했나 보다. 오늘 얘기해.
갖고 싶다 말 안 했네.
갖고 싶어.
뭐걸?
당황했어?
뭐걸? 궁금했어. 쯔위가 생각하는 트와이스 서열이 어떻게 돼요?
와 진짜 오랜만에 한다 이거. 완전 데뷔 초 때. 완전 데뷔 초 때.
지금 또 달라졌을 거야.
지연 언니 1등이고
1등이야?
1등이야? 아무래도 리더니까 1등은 정연 언니.
정연이는 진짜 아니지.
아니 왜 쯔위가 2등이라는데 왜? 왜?
나연 언니, 그 다음이 미나 언니?
오, 의외다.
어떤 기준이야?
그냥 느낌? 조용하지만 한마디 하면 오히려 다들 들어주게 되는.
그건 너가 그럼 1등인데. 쯔위는 몇 등이에요?
5, 6등?
그 밑은
꼴찌인데.
그 밑은 누구야?
그 밑은 누구야? 그것도 되게
쯔위 밑은 누구? 그러니까 쯔위 밑은 누구야?
이 모양이 뭐뭐였어?
아니에요, 없어요. 고생할게요.
이거 진짜 또 쓰실 거예요?
먹다 보니까 괜찮은 것 같아.
그래요?
약간 갑자기 배고픈 것 같아.
좀 먹어요 언니 말하느라고. 저희끼리
그러니까요.
좀 떠들게.
그래.
저희 이번에 네, 아니 우리 그래도 신곡 홍보해야지. 아니 우리 그래도 신곡 홍보해야지. 아니 내가 내가 얼마 전에 티저 사진이 뜬 걸 봤는데 내가 얼마 전에 티저 사진이 뜬 걸 봤는데 미니 14집? 미니 14집이에요. 가능해요? 미니 14집?
근데 오히려 느낌이 좀 적은 느낌이에요.
일본 것도
사실
있어가지고
일본이랑 정규랑 스페셜 다 합치면 한 20 몇 개 될 텐데 20 몇 개 될 텐데
와 대박이다. 그래서 한창 활동할 때 막 1년에 3컴백이라고.
4번 컴백한 적
네 번?
4번이었던 걸로 기억해요.
이번 곡은
이번 노래는 조금 키치한 것 같은데 마냥 그냥 키치한 노래는 아니고요. 마냥 그냥 키치한 노래는 아니고요. 찰스 매력에 빠질 수밖에 없는 전략을 노래를 한다. 그런 내용.
야, 잘한다, 쯔이야, 이제.
앞으로 얘 시키자 우리.
해봤다고 이제.
제목이 뭐예요, 쯔이 씨?
Strategy입니다. Strategy.
어렵다. 무슨 뜻이에요?
전략.
아, 그래.
전략.
아, 그래. 그래서 트와이스의 매력에 빠질 수밖에 없는 전략을. 그래서 트와이스의 매력에 빠질 수밖에 없는 전략을. 그래서 트와이스의 매력에 빠질 수밖에 없는 전략을 노래한다고. 뭐야, 진짜 잘한다.
은근 언제 이렇게 잘했지야?
잘한다. 어떤 컨셉이에요?
이번에 그 메간이 피처링을 했거든요. 그래서 힙한 느낌도 있으면서 키치한 것도 있고 피처링을 했거든요. 그래서 힙한 느낌도 있으면서 키치한 것도 있고 들려드릴까요?
진짜요?
I'ma get you real good and I bet ya it's Megan Thee Stallion. Once I get ya, you'll be oh so bad and twice.
오! 와, 진짜 헬스클럽 호스트 특혜로 제가 먼저 들어봤는데 너무 좋은데? 저희가 근데 헬스클럽 호스트 특혜로 제가 먼저 들어봤는데 와, 진짜 헬스클럽 호스트 특혜로 제가 먼저 들어봤는데 너무 좋은데? 저희가 근데 타이틀곡이 한 번도 올 파트가 있었던 적이 없어요. 근데 인트로가 다 올 파트예요. 그래서 뭔가 새롭나? 느낌이? 네, 그럴 수도 있어요. 왜냐면 처음에 이제 나연 언니가 안 나오잖아요. 저는 원래 맞네.
원래 처음에 고윤아연이 나와야 되는데 다 같이 올 파트로 나오니까 새로울 수도 있을 것 같아.
기대된다.
무대 보시면 또 다르게 느낄. 무대 보시면 또 다르게 느낄.
진짜 잘해. 쟤 뭐야?
집에 갈까?
그러니까 가수는 왜 쓸 것 같아?
내가 궁금해서 물어보고 싶었던 건데 어떤 걸그룹 하면 생각나는 계절이 있잖아. 걸스데이는 약간 뭔가 여름이 생각나고 이런 그룹이었는데 트와이스는 여름도 생각나고 겨울도 생각나는 거야. 겨울에 나왔던 노래도 너무 잘 된 노래가 많고 여름에 나왔던 노래도 잘 된 노래가 많으니까 반반으로 갈릴 것 같은 거지. 반반으로 갈릴 것 같은 거지. 그 계절이. 그래서 멤버들이 생각했을 때의 트와이스의 컨셉
aspect of my studies. And I use this website called All Set Learning. And this is where I learn my Chinese grammar. So right now I'm in HSK 2 grammar. So I've been learning grammar for that level. And I'm also, for Japanese, I'm in N4 grammar. So I'm learning grammar for that level. That's basically the gist of it. And while I'm learning vocabulary and grammar for both of these languages, I'm also watching something on the screen in Japanese, listening to something in the screen in Japanese or Mandarin Chinese, depending on which one I'm on at the time. I like to watch about 1 to 2, maybe 3 videos per language, even for Swahili. But I like to keep it at 1 to 3 videos of listening practice, and one of those listening practices has to be one that's specifically designed for teaching Mandarin or teaching Japanese or teaching Swahili or teaching the language. And then the other ones can just be content in that language, you know? But yeah, that's my studies for Chinese and Japanese. They both take around the same time. I do the exact same things for them both. So, oh, and app studies. For Japanese, I use the app YouSpeak. And for Chinese, I use the app Hello Chinese, you know? And on occasion, I will use drops for them both as well with learning vocabulary, but I usually like to stick to those language-specific apps for
Now, ever since I was a wee little lad, I've been learning languages, because I never quite figured out how to interact with other children. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how I've been learning languages all these years, how you essentially don't need to study in the traditional sense to make a lot of progress, and provide some tips to all of you to take your language learning to the next level. It can largely be a stress-free and fun process. I'm a huge proponent of it, and I think it's the most important thing ever. And in all that time, I'm sure you can imagine that I've tried every single language learning resource under the sun. Some were too expensive, some weren't as effective as others, and some just flat out didn't work for me. But there has only been one that I've come back to on a regular basis after all these years. It was co-founded by everybody's favorite senior, Mr. Big Steve Kaufman, and it's called LingQ. Now, there's a basic principle behind this service that I believe to be as important as the invention of the wheel in language learning, and that is comprehensible input. And this is how we circumvent the need to study. All you really need to do is listen and read in your target language. Now, let's unpack that a little bit. Now, when you're consuming something in a foreign language, i.e. your target language, you're going to want to shoot for 80 to 90% comprehension. That is absolutely ideal. If it's much lower than that, it's way too difficult and not worth your time. If it's much higher than that, then it may be too boring and easy for you if you want to keep going and progress at a normal rate. And interestingly, this is the exact way that children learn languages. So why should it be any different for the rest of us? Parents naturally know how to speak to their children in a simple, effective way, yet still throw in some unknown words here and there so that the child learns in context. And it's the exact same idea here. But comprehension isn't the only thing that matters. You also need to enjoy what you're listening to. So you need to read and listen in your target language about topics that you enjoy. In a perfect world, you read and listen at the same time so that your brain connects the sounds and meaning to the written script in the language. It's just a lot more efficient that way. So let's go in and take a look. And this is why LingQ is super powerful, because they have thousands of hours of content that you can search for right here. And if somehow they don't have what you're looking for, then you can import pretty much anything from other platforms, such as YouTube, Netflix, etc., into LingQ for your viewing pleasure. And speaking of Netflix, I mean, look at this new UI. It looks pretty good, right? It kind of looks like Netflix, but for language learning. It really looks great. There's also all this talk about consistency in language learning. And while consistency is super important, if you enjoy what you're reading and listening to, then you generally don't need to worry about it too much. Back when I was in high school, I would very enthusiastically get home and clock overtime hours into listening to foreign languages because it's just what I loved to do. And that's why I progressed relatively quickly, because I was putting way more time into it than the average person. Back then, it wasn't uncommon for me to spend 8-10 hours a day learning languages. And I guarantee you that if I didn't enjoy it as much as I did in the past, then I would not be sitting here making this video right now. So yes, consistency is important, but in my opinion, it's even more important to find a way to enjoy the process so that you don't need to worry about staying consistent in the first place. Next, you got to know what you know and what you don't know, right? So it's super helpful to have all that information in one place. So right over here, you can actually see how many words you've marked off as known and look through the words themselves. Here, you can actually see how many words you've marked off as known and look through the words themselves in an SRS system. You can see here that I've studied the most Russian on LingQ. I have over 28,000 known words. I have German, 6,000, 13,000, French, Spanish, 4,000, Portuguese, 5,000, Chinese, 1,600, Dutch, 3,000, and then I've like dabbled in a bunch of different languages. That's also the cool thing about this is that you can access all of these languages. It's also worth noting that this isn't all the words I know in every single language, just all the words on LingQ that I've marked as known. I've put hundreds, if not thousands of hours in other places besides LingQ, but I still have spent like literal years on this site. So if you're unfamiliar with the term SRS, it stands for Spaced Repetition System. And it's essentially designed to show you words and phrases that you want to learn right before you're about to forget them so that they enter your long-term memory more easily. While this is incredibly efficient, I personally never found it to be the most exciting way of learning new words, but it's nice to know that LingQ gives you that option if you do enjoy learning that way. But with the way that LingQ is set up, you don't need to do that at all if you don't want to, and that's the really cool part. LingQ also keeps really detailed statistics about your studies that are really interesting to look at. They even have graphs showing your progress in all the languages that you studied, which I think is super cool. So let me take you through a lesson in Spanish so that you can see what the core of this thing looks like. You can also adjust the difficulty up here if what you picked was either too hard or too difficult. So now we're here in a lesson. This is actually a TED Talk, which is really interesting. I love watching them in English, so why not in other languages? All the words in blue are words that I have never encountered before on LingQ. And the words in yellow are words that I have seen before and saved as links, but words that I haven't marked off as known or learned yet. So I'm going to start it. And since it's a YouTube video, they actually give you the video to watch while you go along with the transcript, which is really cool as well. Or you can just stick to the audio version.
Estoy seguro de que todos sospecháis ya y sabéis con certeza incluso de qué personaje o de qué persona voy a hablar, ¿no? Aquí lo veis y efectivamente tenéis razón, voy a hablar.
All right, so I think you get the point. And then we would go through the entire thing, click on words we don't know, like if we don't know what sabes means, and we would click on it. You can actually hear them say it right here.
Sabéis. Sabéis.
And then right here, we have the translations. So if I wanted to save it, all I would have to do is click on one of the translations and bam, now this will show up in all other lessons where this word comes up. So I'm gonna encounter it naturally as I keep studying Spanish. And since I already know what certeza means,
Certeza.
I'm gonna click on it and all the way down here, I'm gonna click this check mark which means that I know it, and you'll see that it'll turn white, like all the other words that I've encountered and marked off as known.
Cronista.
Cronista. So then you just go through, pick all the words you don't know, and move on to the next lesson. And that's the main crux of it. As you do more and more lessons, you're going to run into unknown words multiple times and learn them naturally through context, which, let me tell you, is a lot better than staring at flashcards all damn day, in my opinion. Oh yeah, I can also highlight and save entire
one day. Today I have a special guest, Mike, Biju Mike, who is a fan of anime and who's very much into learning Japanese. And we're going to talk about this. He's a YouTuber, a very popular YouTuber. We're going to talk about all of these subjects, and I think it'll be quite interesting and different from my normal videos. Hello, Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Mike, and I've been a huge fan of anime since I was a little kid, pretty much. And for a lot of people, that is what gets people interested in learning Japanese, because mainly you just want to be able to read things like manga in Japanese, or you want to be able to watch anime without having to rely on subtitles. I mean, it was probably more of an issue back in the day before, it was so widespread, when it was harder to obtain like subtitles and dubs and things like that. But it's still something that really interests me, and just got me into language learning in general. Yeah.
As someone who knows practically nothing about anime, can you tell me a little bit about anime and the kinds of things that you talk about on your YouTube channel? And of course, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Just search in BG Mike, or I don't know if you have a link down in the description. But yeah, I mean, it's such a unique name that even if you misspell it, you'll probably still find me. Yeah, when I started YouTube, I would talk a lot about anime, but now I pretty much just play games. Sometimes I do like anime related games, and I do make references to anime. Like people, because of my background, people know that I like anime. So it's just kind of a part of who I am. But I just do a lot of videos, mostly playing games online and doing reactions to stuff, just giving my opinions on stuff like that. So that's what I do.
Since I know nothing about anime. Yeah. So anime, typically, my understanding is like a story where you have these cartoon figures that follow a certain style. And how does that connect with games?
A lot of things come out of Japan, like, games, Japanese games, anime, and things like that. And it has this certain aesthetic and style that is just a lot different from, like, you would say something like Spider-Man, or, if you were just compared to like a popular cartoon, it's completely a different vibe, I guess you would say. And it just, from a little kid, it got me really interested. And that's how I made pretty much all of my friends, because we all grew up watching Dragon Ball together, which Dragon Ball is super popular. Yeah.
I'm completely unaware of all of that.
I'm surprised that you haven't heard of Dragon Ball.
But it's certainly a major phenomenon. Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of people who become interested in learning Japanese and who become quite proficient in Japanese, they attribute that to their interest in anime. And so that was also your case. And how do you migrate from anime to learning Japanese?
I mean, I wish I could say I had a great reason. I don't. Like, there wasn't a need. Like, it's not like I have to learn Japanese to survive or anything like that. But I just found it really interesting. I pretty much just one day, it was probably around maybe 2018 or 2019, I started learning like hiragana and katakana, and I picked up one of the Genki books, and I just thought it was really interesting. Then I started doing some research about it, and I just thought it would be generally cool to be able to watch anime without having to rely on subtitles and also read in Japanese. I just thought the idea was really cool, and it got me interested. And now I actually just love the process of language learning. It feels like you're unlocking like a new part of the world.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what's interesting is that many people think, I want to learn this language because I'm going to go to Japan, or because I want to speak well, or I want to pass my exam. And those motivations are not that long lasting, really. Whereas whether it be anime, or in my case, I'm interested in history, for example. So you're driven by this interest in some content that you want to watch or listen to or read. And it's through engaging with that content and acquiring words and acquiring new habits in the brain that you start to get better and better at that language, not because you attend class. So I'm just curious, you've been learning Japanese largely on your own, or have you been also attending class?
So no, it's pretty much mostly on my own. Recently I started taking some tutoring lessons, and well, not tutoring lessons, but I've been having, it's like / tutoring / just talking with, you know, a Japanese teacher. When I first started, I used the LingQ textbook a little bit, but then I started finding like your videos and things like that. And I mean, it's a long story. I could get into it, but on my own, basically, is to answer your question, as I've been doing it mostly on my own.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also use tutors primarily just to talk to. And particularly after I've reached a certain level in the language where we can actually have a conversation, and any of the sort of grammatical explanations, if you don't have enough of a sort of level of experience and exposure to the language, it becomes an obstacle. When you have the grammar, trying to figure out, understand and stuff. Whereas if you have enough already of exposure to the language because of your interest in something like anime or history, then later on these explanations actually start to help you. But up front, they're more of a hindrance than anything else. And whether you're driven by anime or history, it really doesn't matter. It's that process. But a lot of people will say, okay, so you like, you know, I say I like listening and reading, and people say, well, how can you listen and read when you don't understand? And how can you read if it's written in a strange script? And of course, Japanese has a big sort of obstacle in that it combines Chinese characters, which are difficult in themselves, and it has two phonetic scripts, which are not really alphabets, but are syllabaries. So how did you deal with the obstacle of the Japanese writing system?
How do I deal with it? Well,
how did you deal with it initially? Once you get over the hurdle, you're getting better and better all the time. But
I wouldn't say I'm fluent I'm not close, you know, but definitely how I dealt with it is, well, I just learned hiragana and katakana first. And really, I just feel like most of it is just getting used to it, you know?
Right.
Because at first it's like you're so slow with reading and things like that. I started with Anki. I'm sure you're aware of Anki. Yeah. So like when it comes to learning Japanese, Anki is always talked about. And, you know, I came across people like Matt versus Japan. And so I kind of went that method. But I also saw your videos at the same time. And at first I didn't understand LingQ, you know, too much. I started dabbling in it like in around 2019. And, you know, I always watch your videos saying that you just need a lot of listening and a lot of reading. So I did Anki for probably a few years. I didn't do it for like maybe 30 minutes a day or something like that. I thought for some reason I would get good if I did that. Not very much time, but around 2023, I decided to go full in on LingQ. And that's when it started clicking for me. Like lots of input, lots of reading and listening is like the key. And I was able to pick up words. And that's, you know, I wanted to ask you kind of the same question, how to get over like kanji and stuff like that, like what your opinion on that was.
So first of all, I follow the same path as you. You first have to get the audio in you, and you have to use some form of phonetic script, which could be, say, in the case of Chinese, pinyin, because they don't really have a separate phonetic script. In the case of Japanese, you do have the kana, the hiragana, katakana. So I've never used the romaji. I think that's a distraction.
Oh, yeah, neither.
So you just have to fight through it and get used to the kana, which is a phonetic script. Now, insofar as the characters, the kanji, I had a big advantage because I knew most of the characters from Chinese. And even if the form and the meaning is sometimes different in Japanese, having the Chinese kanji behind me was a major advantage. If you are starting with Japanese, so you don't have the kanji, you just have to grin and bear it. It's a separate learning activity, to my mind. You devote a half an hour or whatever it is a day to going over those characters. Either you just go through them and write them. And I find writing by hand is very helpful. But I know that my son used Heisik, I think it is, or some system. So you can also find some system to learn the characters, but you have to treat the learning of the characters as a parallel stream, in my opinion. And then you gradually blend that into your listening and reading. And the more characters you have, the easier it is to use a system like LingQ. We do have the romaji at LingQ. We have the furigana at LingQ. Sometimes it's wrong. It's fine. Nothing's perfect in this world. And so as you continue reading and listening and using LingQ and continuing your parallel stream with the kanji, you get to 500 to 1,000 to 1,500. Gradually, they sort of come together and you're able to read better and better. But it's always a struggle. it's always easier to read in your own alphabet. Even if you understand, like I'm finding now with Arabic and Persian, I understand the alphabet. I know how it's supposed to work. But for the brain actually to get used to that writing system takes a long time. So it's going to be a struggle. It will remain a struggle. But at the same time, your listening comprehension continues to improve.
Yeah, so when it comes to kanji, I don't know if I'm just weird or maybe I'm doing this in a weird way, but so when I originally started learning Japanese, I did get like an Anki deck based off of remembering the kanji by Heisig that you explained. And so I was studying them like individually. I never wrote them, even though I know that would have helped me. But I was just lazy and I was like, I don't think I'm going to write. So I just never did it. So I kind of got a grasp on kanji, but, and I would do other things. I would use other websites that had flashcards that kind of taught you how to do, I don't know if you've ever heard of Wanikani, but it's a website that teaches you kanji and things like that. Like that helps me. But when I started moving to LingQ, I kind of don't learn kanji anymore. I learn them through words. Like if I see a word enough, I'll just remember how to say it. Like that's even with the kanji.
Right.
I don't know if a lot of people don't talk about that, but I learned through basically vocabulary, the kanji.
I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And in my case, when I was doing Chinese, I very deliberately learned the first 1,000 characters. I had actual flashcards, real paper flashcards. But I got up to 3,000 or 4,000 characters. And so I didn't use those flashcards for the remaining 2,000 or 3,000 characters. Because in fact, you get used to the pattern. There is a pattern in the characters. There's a pattern in everything. There's even a pattern to English spelling.
Yes.
Everything has a pattern. And after a while, you get used to these. And so it becomes easier and easier to remember new characters that you meet because there are familiar components. And so I think you have to put an initial effort into learning 1,000 or so characters. And then after a while, just through listening and reading and practice, your brain gets used to the pattern and it becomes easier to remember the new characters.
That has been my case. I was struggling to try to remember like the individual characters and stuff like that. But eventually I just realized, if you're putting in 3 hours of reading a day or something like which I've done, eventually you're like, wait, I know that word. Like I just know it because I've looked it up and I've seen it so many times that it just becomes natural to you. And I realized that that's all you really need, at least for me.
See, I think there's the fallacy of traditional language instruction is that you can deliberately learn something, that there's a direct relationship with your deliberate effort and what you end up being able to remember and use or recall. It's not that way. I have no idea of what's sticking and what isn't sticking, what I remembered today and will forget tomorrow. It all happens naturally if I expose myself enough to the language, either reading or listening, and eventually using it.
Yeah.
So to that extent, deliberately trying to remember it leads to frustration because I studied this, I did this list yesterday and now it's all poof, it's gone. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Just keep going. So that's my approach.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this question to you. Like, do you think that, I don't know, do you think language is mostly a time, like just how much time you devote to it, because I feel like anything, if you devote enough time to it, you just get used to it eventually, and I feel like that's been my experience is like the more time I put into it, like you have no choice but to remember it because you see something so much.
I think there was this famous Hungarian polyglot, Lom Kato, who had a sort of a formula. And so you had time and attitude over any obstacle, any inhibition, any frustration. So time is obviously a big factor, but there's also whether you are uptight, whether you enjoy what you're doing, whether you enjoy the language, whether you're confident you can learn it, whether you just relax and do it. So if you put in the time and you're very interested, for example, in anime, and you're relaxed about it, and you don't worry about what you forget or what you don't understand, then there's no resistance. So that the positive energy and the time is really working for you. On the other hand, if you put in the time doing useless quizzes and drills and trying to read grammar explanations and you're sort of pushing on a rope, then you're reducing the efficiency of that time. So you've got to grease the skids by being very positive, not questioning yourself, being motivated, being interested. And there is a sort of a sense of, I did a video about, novelty and how new things. In other words, if you're positive about something, there is a sort of dopamine kick in anticipation of, and even while you're learning, which increases your focus, increases your ability to remember. So all of these things, as well as the time, are important.
I totally agree. Like, for me, what keeps me going is like just learning new words, just knowing something that I didn't know, yesterday, or being able to hear Japanese. And it's like, wait, no, I understood that. And especially with Link, being able to look back at a lesson and see that, like, I remember looking at this lesson, I knew nothing. It was like, 100% unknown words. And to see that it's only like, 5 or 10% now, like that's very, very motivating for me.
Similar with me. Like I'm looking at pages of Persian that are mostly white.
Yeah.
And very difficult content. Whereas when I started, it was all blue, it was all unknown. And that gives you a sense of achievement, which again, sort of just further powers your motivation. But let me ask you then, if you say, okay, I learned something, I understand something, and the next day you hit a text where you forget a bunch of stuff, yellow words that you have saved, they're yellow, but now you don't know what they mean, or they're the same sections of a text, even in sentence mode, that you don't understand when you hear it. Does that frustrate you, or does it motivate you?
So this entire time I've been watching your channel, so I've been taking your advice of just forgetting is natural, right?
Right.
And no, it's very true, especially if you take a break. Like pretty soon I'm actually going to take a 2-week trip to Japan, and I know that my Japanese, even though I'm going to be in Japan, is going to get a little bit worse because I'm not going to be reading the words that I'm reading every day. But no, it is a little frustrating, but nothing too bad. I know that it's definitely natural to forget.
The other thing too is if you go to Japan and you spend less time listening and reading and adding to your vocabulary and stuff, that shouldn't frustrate you, because the fact of being in that genuine Japanese cultural environment is going to improve your motivation, attitude. There's a lot of exposure that's happening, even though it's not deliberate. And you'll come back and very quickly you'll be better than ever.
Yeah. So I used to use Anki, right, a lot. And I felt like when I was doing that approach, like I felt like I was only doing Anki and doing flashcards, which like that did help me and it gave me a base. But when I got frustrated with the burnout of how many flashcards, like when you have hundreds of flashcards to do every day, it is like I felt like that's all I was doing. And I was like, this isn't fun. That was my my experience, even though like you're supposed to immerse and do flashcards, but I feel like I was mostly using the little time I had to do flashcards. So in 2023, when I switched to Link, it gave me that feeling that I am immersing the entire time instead of just like relying on doing only flashcards.
Yeah, and if you've watched the last couple of videos I've done, there is research that shows that repetition is not as important as seeing vocabulary items in meaningful context, that the brain has a better chance because you're not getting multiple inputs, if you want, into the word, which words is used with that word, you're developing habits. You can't just deal with words in isolation, even in an Anki deck. Not only is it boring, it's doing the same thing over and over again, but according to the sort of MRI imaging, it's less effective than, even if it's somehow optimized. This is, not everyone agrees with me, but optimized according to some algorithm that you're supposed to, when you're about to forget it, you see it again and all this other stuff. In reality, there's so many words there that are isolated from any meaningful context that it's a bit frustrating and boring. And second of all, apparently not as effective. So, but people are going to do what they like to do. People who like to do Anki are going to do Anki, and they'll probably benefit from it. So I think people have to choose the path that works best for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say my mistake that I made with Anki, not that it did help a little bit, but my main problem is I was mostly, because like I'm a full-time YouTuber and that's what I focus on. And again, like learning Japanese is not a necessity. It's just something I really want to do, but it's not a necessity. It doesn't help my YouTube channel at all or anything like that. So I was using the little time that I had just to do Anki, and so it just felt kind of like isolating, and it gave me the sense that I was learning, but I wasn't like, watching tons of Japanese TV and stuff like that. Like I was just making flashcards, but I wasn't doing that. But for me, in 2023 was the breakthrough. I've been watching your videos, and at that point, I kind of didn't believe in Link. So what I did is I just forced myself to read this. There's these things called visual novels, which they're basically just stories, but they're with pictures, and it's almost like a video game, but it's mostly just reading like a book, and then there's characters on it, like pictures of characters. Basically, it's a weird thing, but it has a lot of voice with a lot of the text too. So what I did is I found an easy short visual novel, and I went through the entire thing on Link, and by the time I was done with that, like it changed my opinion completely on Link. And then that's when I went full on that. And every time I go back to Japan, I'm able to read signs on the trains now, and I wasn't able to do that before. So it's like really cool to see that.
Absolutely. We're very similar. My interests are different than yours, but you said something quite interesting. You said very often we have the impression that we're learning, but in fact, we're not learning.
Yeah.
And we really don't know when we're learning. We think, okay, we studied this grammar explanation, or we studied this conjugation table in some other language. We think we learned something. In fact, maybe we didn't learn something. And you went through your visual novel because you're interested in it, not because you're deliberately learning, but in fact, you're learning better. So again, it's only after a while, say using LingQ, for example, or reading it, you realize just how much you've achieved, even though while you were doing it, you didn't have that impression that I'm learning something. And I think that gets back to my sort of Zen, effortless, the best craftsman is someone who effortlessly, whatever he does, if he's a carpenter or if he's a butcher, you just got to naturally do it. And I think the results speak for themselves. Listen, we're so much in tune with how we approach language learning. We could go on forever. I don't know if you have any other questions.
So you've been using LingQ since the beginning. So what did you do before LingQ? I know that you are technically a co-creator, I believe.
Yeah. Co-creator, not in any technical sense, since my son Mark and his team look after the technical side of things. But before LingQ, I learned a bunch of languages, but always on the same principles. In other words, comprehension, vocabulary, accumulation through lots of listening and reading. And then you start speaking. And if you have more opportunity to speak, you'll do better eventually, although you'll stumble at first. Of course, I lived in France for 3 years as a student and then had to learn Mandarin Chinese. I was in Japan and constantly listening. Get in my car in the summer, it's 35 degrees Celsius, like getting into a furnace.
Yeah.
But I'd be listening to Japanese all the time. So the principles of learning are the same. The motivation for LingQ was the idea that I had a bunch of books here, for example, with a whole bunch of words underlined that I wanted then to learn. I'd look them up in the dictionary and I'd forget them. And I realized with the advent of the internet and MP3 files and online dictionaries and all of the functionality you can build into something, that there was a lot better way than trying to, just read and say words. Prior to that, I would rely too, in all of my languages, I would try to rely on readers where you had.
Welcome back, man. It's been a while. Even though it's like 1 a.m. there for you.
A vocabulary behind each chapter. And that's when I also realized that you want that vocabulary, that glossary, as close as possible to what you're reading. Because any glossary that's at the back of the book is useless. It's too far removed from what you're reading. Any review of vocabulary has to be as close as possible to what it is you're reading, because the
You're not going to go sleep anytime soon.
purpose of the glossary is not that you're going to memorize the glossary. It's going to help you get through the text, because the learning takes place because you're getting through the text. So a lot of the principles of learning that are embodied in LingQ basically reflect my experience as a language learner with, readers, with glossaries, with struggling to remember vocabulary. At a time when the audio was not so readily available, there was no YouTube. They had these open reel tape recorders and whatnot. Principles were the same, but the technology is so much better today.
Yeah, I just realized that LingQ is 20 years old now.
Amazing.
So you've used it since the beginning. But I find that really interesting. So when you learned your first language, did you what was your first language? French, I'm assuming?
To learn.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in Montreal in those days was very much, a million English speakers, too many French speakers, not too much connection between the two. Today, that's not the case. Montreal is quite bilingual. But the first language that I sort of determined I want to learn this language to a level of fluency was French. And so I ended up doing a lot of reading and listening, watching French movies, much like you with anime. Then I ended up going to France and studying there for 3 years. Then the second one was Mandarin Chinese, because I was working for the Canadian government. They sent me to Hong Kong to learn Mandarin. But I carried the same practices. One big advantage of learning Japanese and Chinese is that, to me, although other people disagree, they are not grammar intensive languages like Russian or the Romance languages or Arabic. So you have to get used to the patterns. And so if you get used to thinking in terms of patterns of the language rather than grammar rules, which is the way I approach Chinese and Japanese, they say it this way. I don't want to see an verb, noun, subject, verb, not. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I just want to, this is what we say in English. This is what they say in Japanese. So I wanted to get used to the patterns of the language. And I think that I carried that forward. And my initial motivation to learn Russian was that I felt I could do the same thing with a Slavic language, which is very, grammatically complicated, which to my mind, Japanese and Chinese are not. Yeah, that's how I approach it. Always a lot of input. This is long before I ever heard of Stephen Krashen.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I noticed that, like, before, when I would try to follow textbooks or try to learn grammar on their own, when I know nothing, it's challenging. But like when I started reading a lot on LingQ and stuff like that, when I actually go to look up grammar, I'm like, wait, I've seen this like a million times. And then all of a sudden it's easy to remember.
Well, I liken it to, I remember I was once in a German town and I asked someone there how to get to somewhere, the post office. And being German, of course, he gave me a tremendously thorough explanation of how to get there, you know. But as soon as I walked away from that person, I'd completely forgotten what he said. If, on the other hand, I knew that tree, the bank, the this, the that, if I had some background, some point of reference, then all of those instructions would start to make sense. But if I don't have a point of reference, then all the grammar explanations actually don't do much for you. So the first thing is, as difficult as it is, get the words in you, get the patterns in you, get some familiarity with the language, and then you can always go back later on, particularly if you're curious about why does it go this way, you can look up the explanation if it helps you, if you even remember it. But at any rate, it has to start with exposure to the language.
Yeah, that's why my conclusion that I've like come up with, just like I'm not close to being fluent or anything, but I try to put as much time as I possibly can. It's another question I wanted to ask you about, but basically, yeah, I just feel like that's what language learning is. It's just mostly about getting used to it rather than just trying to struggle to learn it. It's just acquiring and
Absolutely.
Nihongo con
The more mistakes you make, you have to make mistakes, and the more mistakes you make, the more you're going to improve. And I also put out we have a new prime minister in Canada, and one of the knocks on him is that he doesn't speak French very well, which I don't agree with. But of course, being politics, the opposition is going to criticize him for not speaking French, as well as their leader, right? So I said, no. He communicates. He understands. He communicates. He communicates. He has a nice cadence. He is comfortable in the language. He is pleasant to listen to. He communicates. That's all you need. It's not like Olympic diving. We shouldn't be sort of giving a 9 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. So the whole emphasis in language output that somehow you're going to be judged by how well you pronounce or how accurate your grammar, none of that matters. What matters is how well does that person communicate.
Yeah.
And I've done so much business with people from non-English speaking countries, from Europe, from Asia, whatever. And if they communicate well with mistakes, with patterns that come from their own language, with pronunciation that reflects their own language, but they communicate well, use words to get their thoughts across. We don't need to be perfect in the language, but you said you had a few more questions.
On LingQ, what is your most studied language? Because I think in one video I saw your Korean. If I remember correctly, it was something in the 40,000 known words or something like that.
Well, I would think probably in terms of, it depends what we look at, but words, read words, known words would be Russian.
Russian,
Russian, Czech, and then we have a bunch of them at 40,000, including Korean and yeah.
Yeah, no, that blew me away because I'm barely at 20,000, and of course, we both know that doesn't mean you actually know that many words, but I still thought that was pretty mind blowing. I was like, wow, like that's crazy.
Yeah, you got to be careful because it's often the same word in different forms.
Exactly, yeah.
And this multiplying effect is bigger in some languages than others, so it's not comparable. But nevertheless, it is encouraging. Whenever I say I'm nowhere in Korean, and then I look, oh, actually, my passive knowledge is not that bad because I have 40,000 known words.
Yeah, no, like I'm trying to think what's a good number for like a language. Like, if you were just to say in general how many known words a person would have before they were like fluent when it comes to using LingQ, I just wonder what that number would be in certain languages. Like I was thinking maybe
컨셉이 나 이게 더 좋아라는 게 궁금하더라고.
전 여름.
근데 지효는 확실히 그 태닝 싹 하고 난난난난난 하는 게 확실히 태닝 싹 하고 난난난난난 하는 게 확실히. 장현이는?
겨울 할래요. 겨울 할래요.
왜?
왜지?
나랑 똑같은 거 하기 싫어?
아 이걸 너무 덥잖아.
왜?
왜지?
나랑 똑같은 거 하기 싫어?
아 이걸 너무 덥잖아요.
그러니까 너가 좋아하는 계절 물어본 거 아니고.
겨울 할래요.
쯔미는?
저도 겨울. 뭔가 트와이스의 그런 에너지가 밝고 여름 같기도 하지만 겨울 때는 그런 따뜻함이
필요한 것 같아, 사람들한테.
너 잘한다. 왜냐면 겨울의 따뜻함 얘기하기 쉽지 않거든? 왜냐면 겨울의 따뜻함 얘기하기 쉽지 않거든? 겨울은 추우니까. 그래서 뭔가 나는 트와이스 하면 이상하게 그 크리스마스가 생각나.
근데 겨울곡도 꽤 많을 거야. 근데 겨울곡도 꽤 많을 거야. 티티도 어쨌든.
맞아.
그치.
할로윈 컨셉이었어.
낙낙도
겨울.
하트쉐이커. 나는 근데 프리 스페셜 좋아하거든. 난 그 트와이스의 밝은 척하는 아련한 근데 또 알코올 프리도 좋아해. 여름도 포기 못하는 거지.
근데 그게 참 앨범을 낼 때마다 전 앨범보다 좀 더 새로워진 느낌이어야 되고 앨범 나올 때마다 이게 소개하기가 좀 그런 거예요. 맨날 전 앨범보다 좀 더 성숙해진 느낌으로 나오고 막 이러는데 언제까지 우리가 성숙하면 뭐지?
앨범이 20몇 개가 있는데.
그래서 나중에 저희가 막 이랬거든요. 미니 앨범 막 100몇 집까지 막 내가지고 저희 이번에 다시 또 성숙해진 느낌.
언제까지 성숙해져?
진짜 최종. 최종.
근데 옛날에는 그런 고민이 진짜 많았거든요. 뭔가 새로운 모습을 보여줘야 된다. 그런 게 많았는데 요즘 또 나오는 이런 아이돌 친구들을 보면 팀 색깔이 되게 확실하잖아요. 근데 저희도 그거 못지않게 팀 색깔은 정말 확실하다고 생각하거든요.
맞아.
그래서 그냥 저희가 잘하는 거 하면 이젠 된다고 느껴요. 그냥 저희가 잘하는 게 저희밖에 못하는 거라고 생각하고 그건 다른 팀들도 다 마찬가지고. 그러니까 우리가 잘하는 거 계속하면 우리를 좋아해 주시던 분들은 좋아하지 않을까?
멋있다. 깨달음을 얻었어. 역시 10년 차. 나 진짜 미안한데 이 게임 한 번만 하고 끝내면 안 돼?
어떤 거야?
나 해보고 싶었던 게 있었거든? 지우야 이렇게 하는 거 있잖아. 그거 어떻게 하는 거야?
쯔위야! 이런 거.
그럼 누가
네 이렇게.
그럼 쯔위가 대답해야 되는 거 아니야?
맞아. 네 하고 내가 찌위야 이렇게 해야 되는 거지.
맞다. 저희 진짜 못해가지고 게임이 안 될 수도 있어.
진짜 못하는 거. 나 해보고 싶어.
오랜만에.
틀리면 술 먹기다.
오케이. 어떻게 처음 인트로 노래가 있어?
내 이름을 불러줘.
내 이름을 불러줘.
정연아.
혜니 언니.
네.
쯔위야!
네. 지연.
마셔라.
헷갈려요.
너무 헷갈린다. 바보 되는 기분이야.
나중에 보면 엄청 천천히 하고 있을 것 같아, 우리.
빨리 지금 진짜 빨리 찌부터 내 이름을 불러줘.
조연 언니.
누가 틀린 거지?
지효.
내 이름을 불러줘.
정연아. 내 이름을 불러줘.
조연 언니.
네.
쯔위야!
네.
지효야.
This is YouTube, but I do have Link in the background. So right now I'm just doing the listening comprehension, just improving the listening comprehension portion. But nice to see you, Matthew Cannon. It's my first time seeing you here, so glad you can make it. You also from Link too, or just passing by?
아니 너무 늦게 하잖아.
언니 왜 하려고 했어요?
아니야 왜 하려고 한 게 아니고.
너무 늦게 하니까.
누가 잘못했어?
너가.
내가요?
어.
술다 마셔라.
네.
풀어줘. 혜리 언니.
네.
느려. 어때요? 재밌어요? 게임도 좀 시켜주시고.
그러니까요. 게임 코너
이렇게 좋아하시는데.
아, 재밌다. 너무 재밌었어. 고마워. 나 고마워. 와, 재밌다. 오늘 너무 트와이스 분들 나와가지고 진짜
갑자기 엔딩 멘트.
게임도 해주시고.
네.
나 솔직히 말하면 처음부터 해보고 싶어.
Oh, nice. How long have you been studying Chinese on LingQ? Yeah, Chinese on Link is actually pretty good. I can endorse it for sure. Probably one of the best apps, my opinion.
아 진짜요? 언제 하고 싶을 때.
아 진짜 고마워요.
어떻게 영통으로 해?
영통으로라도 뭐. 영통으로라도 뭐.
오늘 정말 바쁜 스케줄을 빼서 나와주셔서 너무너무 감사드리고
저희가 더 감사합니다.
너무 재밌었어요. 진짜 마지막 질문으로 헬스클럽 공식 클로징 질문이에요. 헬스클럽 공식 클로징 질문이에요.
TMI.
오늘의 TMI는?
준비했는데요.
네.
정연 언니가 물어봤어요. TMI 너 준비했니?
more around like 50,000, like for Japanese or something. I don't know.
I think it's 50,000 is getting close to it. It depends on what else you're doing. Like you've still got to do a lot. You have to have earned those words for lots of listening and reading.
Yeah.
If you speak more, you'll be better. So it's almost like your potential in the language, but it's also different with, like, I have 30,000 known words in Arabic and 16,000 in Persian, and I'm much better in Persian than Arabic because of the way the language is structured. So you can't really compare between languages, but it's a high number.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's higher than people think. You often hear this, oh, if I know 1,000 words, I'll be fluent. No, you won't be.
That's the thing I couldn't get through my head too, is like, you just realize like how much of a long journey it is.
緊張はしないです。僕が英語を話すときはもう緊張しないんですけど、でもグループでの会話って難しいですよね。
難しいね。
そう僕がオーストラリアにね、住んでいました。僕がオーストラリアにね、住んでいました。その時にレストランに行きました。オーストラリアの友達と、6人ぐらいで、みんなオーストラリア人、英語ネイティブ。と日本人の僕。
はい。難しそう。
いや難しかったですね。
はい。わかります。
一つの話題について話していたら、こうあっちからもこっちからも話が出てきて、一つの話題について話していたら、こうあっちからもこっちからも話が出てきて、ついていくのに必死というか、ついていくのがすごく大変で、ついていくのに必死というか、ついていくのがすごく大変で、ね、
そうですね。
ずーっと集中していなきゃいけなかったから。
はい。
ね、
そうですね。
ずーっと集中していなきゃいけなかったから、
はい。
緊張はしなかったけど疲れました。
そう疲れます。
そう。エイミーも日本人何人かいて、日本語で話してるときは、そういう感じがあります。
はい、あります。そうそう。まあシェアハウスに6、7人ぐらい日本人がいまして、まあなんだろう、まあ話したいけど全然話せない。いつも集中だけ。なんていう聞くだけ、でも全然話さない。や
っぱり話に入っていけないですよね。
そう。
なかなか。いや、それは難しいですね。
難しいですね。そう。どうぞ。
1対1の会話はどうですか？例えば今みたいなこういう。
全然大丈夫。
余裕？
そう、余裕。しかもまあケンさんは英語を話せるから、まあ知らない日本語の言葉があったら、 まあ、いつもケンさんは説明してくれるから
あーまあ
全然大丈夫です
そうですか。
あと、
はい
まあ、ケンさんの日本語の説明めっちゃわかりやすい。あと、
はい
まあ、ケンさんの日本語の説明めっちゃわかりやすいと思います。
あ、そうですか。
そうそうそう、本当に。そう
あ。
だから、余裕。
余裕。
そう、本当に。そう
あ。
だから、余裕。
余裕。
余裕。
うん
そう。まあ、オーストラリアに住んでた時、一番難しい、まあ、人は、
This is not being tracked by Link. No, I pretty much have a timer on the side of my phone, and I keep track of the time, how much I listen in general. But if you were to listen on Link and it tracks the time, you just go to the link itself and use their typical. You go to any video, and then you just listen, and then that does the tracking for you. But I do tracking outside with a timer. So I pretty much just use a timer on my phone, and that pretty much is my way of tracking time. I've been doing this for a long time, so that's how I do it personally. Pretty much just what you're seeing right now is just normal. It's just normal YouTube.
誰ですか？
一番難しい人。
なんだろう、ちょっと待ってね。まあ、一番難しい聞くな人、おじいさんとか。
ああ、その英語が一番わかりにくかった人。そういうことですか。ですね、一人いました。一人だけ全然わからなかったです。オーストラリア人で男性、年齢は多分50代か60代ぐらいのおじさん。
はい。
スキー場で会ったんですよ。同じレストランで働いていて、で僕が料理を作る。同じレストランで働いていて、で僕が料理を作るまあいわゆるシェフの立場の。ね、でその人は食器を洗う、洗い場の人で、その人は食器を洗う、洗い場の人で、料理をするからいろいろあれ洗ってくださいとかこれお願いしますって言ったら、その後になんかバババババって言われて、んって全然わかんないけどとりあえず
はいって感じね。
全然わからなかった。本当に英語かなっていうくらい。
それぐらい。
仕事が終わった後も、ちょっとね一緒に休憩してお茶とかコーヒーとか飲んで、みんなで話す機会がちょっとあったんですけど、お茶とかコーヒーとか飲んで、みんなで話す機会がちょっとあったんですけど、やっぱりそのおじさんは話が好きだけど、スキーの話僕スキーと結構ね好きなんだけど、スキーの話ですらわからない、全然わからなかった。よく話す話題でも全然わからなかった。
わかります。
まあ、そういう経験はありました。
ありますよね。まあ最近長野県に行きました。そうキャンプ場で着いた時は結構キャンプ場で着いた時は結構70代くらいおじいさんが行ったんだけど、キャンプ場で着いた時は結構70代くらいおじいさんが行ったんだけど、なんだろう、全然わからなかった。で、おじいさんは、まあ、少しだけ分かったけど、おじいさんは、まあ、少しだけ分かったけど、おじいさんは、本当にわかるかなって言った。
エイミー。
そう、エイミーに、そうそう、私に、そう、おじいさんは、本当にわかるかなって言って、私、わかりましたよって言いました。ちょっと、まあ、緊張してました。
やっぱりね、どれだけ日本語が話せるようになっても、その世代が違う人と話したり、あまり世代が違う人と話したり、あまり関わりがない人と話したりするのはちょっと、世代が違う人と話したり、あまり関わりがない人と話したりするのはちょっとね、難しいですよね。
難しい。あと、時々、簡単な日本語を使ってくれる人がいます。最近、郵便局に行って、そう、まあ、専門単語、郵便局の専門単語、最近、郵便局に行って、そう、まあ、専門単語、郵便局の専門単語、あんまりわからないけど、その店員さんは、本当に簡単な日本語を使ってくれたから、全然大丈夫でした。
よかったです。
そう、そういう経験。そういう経験。経験。
はい。ちょっ
と待って。はい。そういう経験もあります。
オーストラリア人だけど、時々オーストラリアが恋しくなるというか、オーストラリアが恋しくなるというか、オーストラリアに帰りたいなって思う時はありますか？オーストラリアが恋しくなるというか、オーストラリアに帰りたいなって 思う時はありますか？
実は
はい。
全然ありません。
あ、そう。
なんだろう、日本の日常生活は
うん。
いいと思います。
あ
なんだろう、もちろんオーストラリアの生活は好きなんですけど、日本で日本語を話さないといけないし、
もちろん。
そう、あと、まあ自然が好きですから、たくさん大自然がありますから、あと、まあ自然が好きですから、たくさん大自然がありますから、あと、まあ毎日日本の生活でチャレンジがありますから、その生活は本当に大好きですよね。
いいですね。なんか嬉しいです。なんか日本人として嬉しい。
そう。その感じ、オーストラリアに住んでた時、その感じがありましたか？
どうかな。僕はね、オーストラリアの生活がすごい好きでしたよ。どうかな。僕はね、オーストラリアの生活がすごい好きでしたよ。でも、日本の生活とオーストラリアの生活は結構違うから、なんだろう、ちょっと比べるのは難しいというか。そうなんだろう、ちょっと比べるのは難しいというか。
そうですね。
でも、僕がオーストラリアに行った理由は3つあって、1つ目、英語を勉強するため、勉強というか話せるようになるため。で、2つ目がスキーの資格を取るために、で、2つ目がスキーの資格を取るために、スキーのインストラクターになるために資格が必要だったから、最後に友達をたくさん作るっていう。
そう。もう、友達を作りましたね。
そうね、何人か友達ができました。でも、なんだろう、そういう目標があったから、そのオーストラリアにいた時は、日本に帰りたくないって思いました。それも日本の生活が嫌っていうわけじゃないんですけど、なんか今、その時は、今、オーストラリアで頑張る時みたいな。
そっか。わかります。
僕は日本が好きですけど、でも、日本に帰ってくると、またオーストラリアに行きたいなっていう気持ちもあるし、去年は台湾にいて中国語を勉強して練習してたんですけど、日本に帰ってきたらやっぱりまた台湾にも行きたいなっていう、そういう感じです。
なるほど。そう、私もオーストラリアに帰ったら、多分日本に戻りたいとそう思いますから、まあずっと日本に住んでいいかなと思います。
じゃあずっと日本に住めるようにね、そのビザが取れるように N2 頑張ってください。
はい、ありがとうございます。
ニーナさんは今大学生ですね。
はい、大学生です。
はい。日本の大学で何を勉強していますか？
サステナビリティ？
サステナビリティ。
自然こととか。
なるほどなるほど。じゃあ4年間日本にいる予定ですか？
너 준비했냐?
진짜?
너 준비했냐? 저 아침에 그 신라면 국물에다가 양배추 넣고 먹었어요. 양배추 넣고 먹었어요. 라면 안 먹었고 국물이랑.
약간 샤브샤브 같은 느낌.
맞아요.
신박해. 해먹어볼래.
괜찮은 것 같아.
달짝지근하고 맛있을 것 같아. 달짝지근하고 맛있을 것 같아.
저는요, 저 오늘 그 샵에서 이사벨 언니 만나가지고 번호 교환했어요.
원래 팬이에요?
네, 원래도 좋아하기도 하고 우연히 몇 번 뵀거든요.
네.
오늘은 번호를 물어봐야겠다. 번호를 물어봐야겠다.
아까 저희 새로운 사람 만나는 거 같으니까.
그래서 다음에 컨텐츠 한번 나와라.
그거 어땠어요? 나갔을 때 찌미가 먼저 나가봤잖아요. 그거 어땠어요? 나갔을 때 찌미가 먼저 나가봤잖아요.
네, 진짜 너무 제가 해보지 않았던 그런 메이크업을 해주시니까 너무 제가 해보지 않았던 그런 메이크업을 해주시니까 그리고 전현 언니가 얘기한 거거든요. 나갔으면 좋겠다.
진짜 다른 느낌이었어. 엄청 그윽한
고양이상.
리오는?
저는 오늘 사주 보고 왔어요.
잠깐만, 못 끝나겠네. 해줄 만한
얘기 있어요?
저 욕심이 그득그득하네요.
그 얘기는 나도 하겠다. 해줄 만한 얘기 있어요?
저 욕심이 그득그득하네요. 저 욕심이 그득그득하네요.
그 얘기는 나도 하겠다. 처음 봐도 욕심이 그득그득하게. 처음 봐도 욕심이 그득그득하게.
나 욕심쟁이 같아?
아니 열정이
여기서 이제 불이 타올라.
여기 뒤에 있어.
있어.
열심히 삽니다.
왜 하필?
미니 14집.
아 갑자기.
어마어마하다.
엔딩 몇 번째?
최종 진짜 최종. 앞으로도 20집, 30집, 140집까지
140집 와.
우리 원스를 위해서
멋있다.
원스를 위해서
멋있다.
건강하게 늘 건강하게 앨범 늘 건강하게 앨범 활동 잘 행복하게 잘 해야 돼요. 알았죠?
네. 언니도야.
우리 행복하자. 그러면 뭐 할까?
건배사?
건배사.
그럼 저희 가사에 Hey boy, I'm a getcha가 있거든요. 그거 할까요?
그러면 헤이보이를 지호가 해줘.
Hey boy, I'm a getcha.
약간 가십걸 같지 않았어요 방금? 약간 가십걸 같지 않았어요 방금? 장난 아니었어. 지금 약간
윙크 언니도 해야 돼.
약간 지금 내가 좋아하는 느낌이었어. 채원이 때문에 못하나?
아니야.
채원이가 스타트였어. 김채원 마이크 아웃.
진지하게 말했어. 난 진짜인 줄 알았지. 진지하게 말했어. 난 진짜인 줄 알았지. 내가 이때까지 그러면 뭘 잘못했구나. 너무 죄송하다.
전설의 도도도도.
좋았어요. 나름 웃겨가지고.
욕심 있네. 패밀리 치파 같이 가야겠는데? 가보자고. 여러분 안녕하세요. 헬스클럽의 혜리입니다. 와 진짜 너무 매주 이렇게 여러분들을 만나는 것 같아서 너무 좋죠. 와 진짜 너무 매주 이렇게 여러분들을 만나는 것 같아서 너무 좋죠. 우리 더 자주자주 만나요. 네, 오늘도 정말 저희 소중한 친구분을 모셔볼 예정인데요. 게스트분을 모시기 전에 오늘의 헬스클럽을 함께한 따란! 진빔 하이볼입니다. 여러분, 진빔 하이볼이 작년 12월쯤이었나요? 편의점에서 품절 대란을 일으켰던 거 아시죠? 저희 이거 먹으려고 편의점을 막 헤매던 그런 기억이 나는데 바로 그 진빔 하이볼 진저 맛이 출시된다고 합니다. 출시되기 전에 먼저 먹어볼 거예요. 오늘의 게스트분을 빨리 모셔보도록 하겠습니다. 르스라핌 채원!
안녕하세요.
왔짱! 드디어 왔어. 약간 머리 이렇게 자르니까 데뷔 때 같아.
그쵸? 그 말 많이 들었어요.
많이 들었어?
똑같이 잘랐거든요, 길이도. 똑같이 잘랐거든요, 길이도.
아 너무 많이 들은 말 했네.
언니 흑발했네요? 잘 어울려.
아 너무 많이 들은 말 했네.
언니 흑발했네요? 언니 흑발했네요? 잘 어울려요, 흑발.
헬스클럽 구독자 여러분들한테 인사 한번 해주세요.
안녕하세요, 구독자 여러분. 르세라핌 채원입니다.
진빔이 새로운 맛이 나왔어요. 바로 진저인데요.
진저.
너 먹어봤어?
그럼요. 진빔 모델이에요.
알아.
그렇군.
자, 나는 처음 마셔보는 거잖아. 진저 맛을.
저도 진저 맛은 근데 처음이에요.
우와! 아까 마셔봤다 그래서 저 모델이에요 이랬잖아.
이 맛은 마셔봤고 이 진저 맛은 또 처음 마셔봐요.
또 처음이야? 네가 처음일 줄 알고 선물 준비했어. 정말. 바로 진빔! 하이볼이야.
와! 진빔!
어때? 너무
귀엽다.
네가 한번 들어줘.
예. 우우우. 진빔. 모델이에요.
진빔
아,
하이볼 해줘.
진빔 하이볼. 잔이 너무 마음에 들지 않아?
오.
뭔가 멋있어.
오 맛있다.
어, 맛있어.
it is to get to that point. And I realized, like, for me personally, I probably spent around, well, in Link it says I have 1,500 hours. So I would say probably altogether is probably between 2 to 3,000 hours I probably have in Japanese in general. And I'm pretty sure I probably need to spend closer to 10,000 hours, but I enjoy it.
Well, that's what I always say. Like, don't try and how fast can I learn?
Yeah.
How long will it take me and stuff? Learn to enjoy it. Like, how many, any activity that you enjoy, why do you want it to end? So.
Oh, of course. I don't know when the day would come that I would even stop like using Link. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I do enjoy it.
Well, listen, we should end it here. I just want to say, Mike, it's been a very enjoyable conversation. You have an attitude that's very similar to mine, one of exploration, enjoyment, taking advantage of every opportunity to learn things, to improve. So it's very encouraging to me that you enjoy using Link. And so I want to thank you very much for having this conversation, and remind our listeners again, whatever you want to tell our listeners about your activity on YouTube.
Well, okay, so you can find me at BG Mike at Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. If you just type that in, nobody else will be named that, so you'll find me. I also recently started a language learning channel called Mike Learns Japanese, and that's where I've talked about Link on there because I realized not a lot of people talk.
No, the secret is eating the potato chips. That's a classic freaking clip right there.
Okay, now all you need to do is tell me which clip you enjoyed watching more. And 99% of people who are not fluent in Japanese will choose one over the other. Did you choose clip 2? If you did, your brain is functioning exactly how it's meant to. See, there's a scientific reason why your brain likes clip 2
So all I have to do is eat more potato chips while studying Japanese. How did I not know this? Bring in the potato chips. I mean, I would have just guessed that it's probably you want to just be able to enjoy something. For me, obviously the first clip was way harder than the second clip, but Death Note is like definitely not an easy anime either, but definitely Haruhi. I remember actually watching a few years ago, I started watching it. I'm going to rewatch it again, but I remember watching it and being like, oh my God, this is pretty tough.
See, there's a scientific reason why your brain likes clip 2 so much more. And I could explain
Potato
this to
chip.
you, or I could let famous language scientist Dr. Stephen Krashen explain this perfectly.
We acquire language in one way.
Oh, because there's a lot more movement. Yeah.
When we understand messages.
Okay, I think I know what you're getting at.
Call this
Comprehensible input. Yeah.
To your brain, clip 1 wasn't
Everyone's
language.
seen that clip.
It was static. It hears the speaker, in this case Yuki Nagato from Suzumiya Haruhi, but your brain can't anchor her voice.
Classic anime, by the way.
So it filters it and spits it back out.
I plan on
And if you
watching it
watched
pretty soon,
thousands of
all the way
hours
through.
of scenes like this one, you would still be stuck at a beginner level forever. But in clip 2, the visuals bridge that gap. Even without comprehending the words, the images allowed you to deduce the meaning. While Light is reaching for the potato chip bag, he says, "Pore chip tori," which means to take a potato chip. And then he says, "Tabere," which means to eat it. And you can clearly see him eating it. Not only that, but when your brain comprehends what it hears and sees, like in clip 2, it triggers small amounts of dopamine in your brain, meaning comprehensible input is the key to addictive language acquisition, right? Wait.
Where are you filming this? Are you in well, if your name is Bjorn, I don't know if that's your name, but this could be to me, this looks like Texas, like Austin, San Antonio? That's what it looks like to me, but it's probably not. Yeah, no, I agree. Like when you're learning any language, ideally, you want to find something that you enjoy, like A, that you enjoy, and then B, that is more comprehensible. So easier for beginners. And yes, the most ideal thing would be something that is you can easily put a word to an action. So if there's a lot of movement, but the thing about anime is that there's a lot of budget cuts in anime because they have to drag out the little bit of source material that they have to make episodes. So a lot of times that's why there will just be a still frame and a lot of talking. It's just to save an animation. So a lot of times that will happen in anime. So it's really hard to find that balance of something that you really enjoy. Haruhi is good. It's really good. It's like a classic anime. Everyone loves it, but it's obviously a lot more sciencey talk. I think I don't know what it's about. That's why I want to watch it. I only watched a few episodes back in a few years ago.
Key to addictive language acquisition, right? Wait, slow down. You're probably thinking you can just click off this video and start immersing in thousands of hours of Japanese content, but that's a route with so many possibilities of burnout or even complete.
Okay, I don't think this is Texas anymore.
4 more levels.
That's what it looked like.
Each is essential to not only understand how to utilize comprehensible input correctly, but to give you every single tool you need in order to sustain that addiction.
I thought he was on the Riverwalk.
Immersion journey.
Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I need you to look at a page of this novel. There's a major problem here. In order to read and understand this page, how many words do you think you need to know? 10,000 words? 20,000 words? 30,000 words?
Depends on the book.
Yeah, around 30,000 words is how many you need to know to fully understand this page.
Yeah.
Sounds terrifying, right? And that's because it is, to be completely honest with
It scares me every day.
You need to be an expert in Japanese and learn for upwards of 5 years to understand even 80 to 90% of this novel.
I know, like literally, like this just happened to me the other day. Like I'll read like a visual novel for like 3 hours at a time sometimes, and it'll feel like it's all like, oh man, this is good. I'm really comprehending like most of this. Like I can read a lot of this. There's not a lot of unknown words in these. And then like I'll be presented with like a page of like random text, and I'm just like, and it feels like I can't understand anything sometimes. So like it's weird how that happens. So some days you're gonna have like that feeling of like, oh, I can read Japanese really good and I can understand things, but then there's others where it's like, what have I been doing this entire time? Have I been studying or not? So those are just the phases you gotta go over, and it really depends on what you're reading. For sure. That's why you should definitely utilize websites, JPDB. And then also there's another one, I think it's called G10. Yeah, so this website I just found out recently, it's just like that other website I was talking about that I've talked about in the past. In case you don't know, yeah, this is a great website that ranks media by difficulty. And, you know, it's not perfect, but definitely if you want to know a good place to start, this is a great place to start. So like you just go by difficulty, right? Yeah, Karakai Jozu no Takagi-san is honestly one of the best beginner anime. Highly recommended, because that was the anime I remember watching it and being like, this is really not that hard, and it's actually enjoyable. So I would highly recommend this over like Shirakumo Cafe, which like everyone recommends. Yo, what's Steins Gate doing over here? This can't. I mean, maybe just like I don't think it's perfect, but here's another website that does exactly the same thing, but they both have like different information. So you can definitely use these two websites to find. But as you can see, Karakai Jozu no Takagi-san is on here. So yeah. And I think that really checks out. Check out those websites. They're fantastic websites. There's a lot of series of Haruhi, Suzumiya Haruhi. Yeah, I never remember the full name of it, but as you can see, yeah, that's ranked hard. But yeah, so is Death Note. But that was a good clip though.
See, I just lied to you because in order to understand
Why'd you lie?
85% of this novel page, you actually only need to know 2,000 words. But wait, how is this possible? Well, you see, Japanese uses 2,000 to 3,000 primary words that control 80 to 90% of every facet of the language. So instead of learning thousands of words at random,
talked about
just
this
learning
before.
from textbooks or starting immersion with absolutely no foundation, if you were to strategically organize and learn these 2,000 primary words in order, you would get to a point where instead of trying to learn through comprehensible input off of only visuals like we talked about in level 1, you would also have an additional 85% word comprehension to fill in large comprehension gaps. With this foundation, many things that were previously considered incomprehensible now have some degree of comprehensibility to them, including clip 2 that I showed you previously in level 1. Oh, and by the way, if you want to have a sense of what 85% comprehension will feel like, here's an example. It's in English, and it was created to demonstrate what 85%.
Yes. I literally use this exact same example in my things, just not nearly as good of editing and like cinematography. Like, yeah, don't expect that for me. So if you subscribe to me, you're getting this. This is what you're getting. Potato chips, apparently. I'm fine with that. Like, this is me. So that's how it's going to be. Take it or leave it, all right? Yeah, I've talked about this, but this is also frustrating as well because I feel like, yes, this is why like Anki is really good because you can really get really high frequency words super fast. Like I talked about just in my last video about how you could download like beginner decks, like the Kaishi 1.5K, or if you go something with like Migaku and you can use like the beginner. I think what they do is they take all the frequency of like Netflix, like visual novels and anime. I don't know exactly what databases they use, but they get a lot of those like really high frequency words. So you want to get those out of the way. But yeah, but once you do that, it still sometimes feels like you haven't really acquired the words completely until you hear them over and over again. And that process takes so much time. That's why I say Anki is not the end of the road. Flashcards aren't the end of the road because really you're kind of just planting seeds, but your immersion is where you basically water the seeds and it becomes more ingrained to where you can just naturally understand like, you know, language when it's spoken to you. But obviously as an English speaker, bingle for help. What do you mean bingle for help? Wait, well, literally, what does that mean though? In my example, I didn't use this sentence, but yeah, bingle for help, you shout, this loopity is dying. You put your fingers on her neck. Nothing. Okay, no, this is actually a lot different than the example that I did. But like literally, what is bingle? Like bingle is just gibberish. Could you imagine? Bingle for help. What the hell are you saying? You put your fingers on her neck. Nothing. Her fleet is not weefling. You take out her jupil and bingle 1-1. The emergency number in Japan. There's no answer. Then you munchie that you have a newbie form a single. It's your good. I get it. So basically, if you just take out the gibberish, you could kind of understand what they're saying. Oh, geez, this is freaking funny. If you get this, Evie says, I can't vicar now. The important passage is suddenly she looks around. Dingle. Oh no, they're here. Crippet, the frib. Wassail them up on the frib. Beep. There's a symbol. Parentals, then you gratoon something behind you. I ain't gonna lie, like even as a native English speaker, I don't know what the hell this is saying. Somebody definitely needs to bingle their 119 juple or something. Sounds a little dirty. I don't know. It's just me. I get it though.
Feels like
You could get someone needs help. Someone dial 911.
Feel free to pause and give it a
Or
read.
119
Now
if you're
you're
in
wondering how to
Japan.
get the 85% comprehension as fast as possible, right? And well, it's pretty simple to be honest. Because all you need is this free app called Anki. I'm sure you've heard of it. Once you have it,
Yes.
then get this deck called Core 2K with sentences. It'll teach the most common 2000.
Yeah, I mean, I always recommend the Kaishi one just because everyone else does it. Like, again, I'm not a huge Anki user, and I didn't use that deck. I use like the Tango frequency lists, or like the Tango words. Basically, it's a textbook called Tango, and it's like all the like basic words for the JLPT. So it was like, important words that I'm going to be using, but I'm just trusting that these are good because everyone recommends them. But yeah, so I'm sure this deck is just as good too.
It's pretty simple to be honest. Because
There's
all
a
you
million
need is this
decks you
free
can
app called
download.
Anki. I'm sure you've heard of it. Once you have it, then get the
Yeah, and also people disdain Anki. Also, like I stopped Anki too, and I mostly read. But I don't hate flashcards because really they're very useful. The only thing is that I feel like the pitfall is you just have to make sure that you don't do too many flashcards a day. Because if you do too many flashcards, you're going to give up. And because most likely, inevitably, you're going to miss 1 or 2 days at some point for whatever reason. And if that does happen, you don't want to be so far down in the pit that you're going to struggle. I don't know if Anki allows you to do it, but like I want to say like Mikaku and other apps will allow you just to stop new cards completely for a little bit if you know for sure that you're going to miss them. But you don't want to do that. If you're going to do flashcards, you want to do it every single day consistently, because that's the key to learning anything. You want to be consistent, just like working out. Like I always use that as an example, but it's super effective. So if you can't study Japanese every single day, I think really, you probably shouldn't. You just shouldn't, because you're going to be frustrated at your progress. I'm already frustrated at my progress, and I still study every day.
If you do 15 new cards per day, you'll understand around 85% of every.
Yeah, I would say anywhere from 10 to 20.
4 months. If you don't know hiragana and katakana yet, also do this deck simultaneously. You can do around 1 to 3 cards per day for this one.
Yeah, I mean, you could do an Anki deck for hiragana
You're
and
about to
katakana.
level up to level 3, but if I sent you there right now, you'd be a little unprepared, potentially leading to a complete game over. That's because failing to understand this one concept in behavioral psychology will make every other level of this video
Yeah,
ineffective.
dude, I love the way you put this video together. This is so freaking cool. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin with this kind of stuff. I'm really adding commentary to this, aren't I? Yeah, see, like, my problem when I make videos is, like, I know already that people in the comments are going to be like, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, I do this instead. So, like, this video is it's good because it's just giving you something to do. Like, you could, if you just did that and you did it, it would work. But I'm always overthinking in my head, like, oh, well, there's other ways that you could do it too. So I try to give multiple ways to do something. So yeah, I talked a lot about this
Including
in my last
3
video.
and 4, which are the most important levels in this entire video. We can call this level 2.5, and it's right in the middle because it controls the outcome of all 5 levels. The key to addictively learning Japanese is actually not even about the methods in which you use, but within your own brain's psychology. Learning Japanese itself is actually extremely easy, and anyone can do it. But not everyone can make it to the finish line due to having poor mental fortitude or failing to understand this one simple concept. You see, this concept that I'm about to teach you can either be your biggest downfall or the biggest key you can use to addictively
This is a good YouTuber right here. I know what he's doing because he's keeping me on edge right there. But that's like, I'm bad at this. I am bad at formulating
learning
videos.
Japanese, which is the entire reason you clicked on this video. It's called
I'd probably be
confidence
way
loop.
bigger
It
of a
dictates that
channel on my main
confidence in
channel if I
action must be backed up
was
by
better at
some
this kind of
degree
stuff.
confidence. Let's relate this to language learning in order to make it crystal clear. You're going to the movies with your Japanese friend in 2 weeks. The movie's entirely in Japanese, so you study tirelessly with the sole goal of being able to enjoy and watch this movie to impress your Japanese friend. As each day of studying goes on, your confidence slowly rises.
Yes.
Finally, the big day comes around and you're prepared and ready with your confidence at its peak. After all, you studied tirelessly for this moment. You both walk into the theater and the movie begins. You realize something instantly that shatters your confidence and forces you to fall out of the confidence loop. You couldn't understand a single line of dialogue. The movie was far too complex for your skill level.
Conan?
No level of confidence was met, so the confidence loop could not be completed. But if we pause and rewind a little, situations like this can most mostly be avoided if you learn to abuse the confidence loop rather than being abused by it. When choosing which movie to see with your friend, you had a few options, but you chose the hardest one. If you
I feel like this has to be the hardest one. No? Are you? This has to be. I don't know much about the Fate series, but I know it's extremely confusing. Girls Band, yeah, that's probably going to be the easiest one.
instead carefully considered which would be possible for you to comprehend, you would have noticed another movie that
Dude, this is crazy editing. Dude, good job. I wonder how many months it took you to do this. This is only your second video.
And had a much higher chance of not destroying your confidence. Sure, you would still not understand a lot when movie day comes around. That's just a part of learning any new language. But you would understand just barely enough to remain within the competence loop because some degree of competence was successfully met. This causes your competence to climb higher and your confidence to rise. Point is that everything.
Yeah, see, this is like where when it comes to, I talk about transitioning to like reading a lot. This is where a lot of people, like when they start to read something, like doing Anki and then going to reading is like it's a different ball game. Yeah, in the beginning, I really felt this, and that's what I did to overcome that is like I read like the easiest visual novel on one of those apps websites, right? I just decided in my head, I'm like, I don't care how much I can understand of this. I am going to read this to completion, whether I enjoy it or not. Okay, so I did it hardcore, and I realized by the end of it, I understood more than I thought. I remember also like trying to read Steins Gate, the visual novel Steins Gate. I tried to read that for a bit, and I remember when like certain anime like Clannad would be really, really hard. But I find, especially Clannad, I remember specifically doing this on Link, what I used like to read. I was just rewatching episode 1 of Clannad over and over. I've probably seen it like 100 times by now. The more I rewatched it, rewatching content is a really great way to like progressively learn more and then like, you know, kind of artificially create that feeling, that dopamine hit of understanding like more and more each time, right? Because like the more you study something, you're going to understand it like more every time. So I think rewatching is a great strategy. I don't know if he's going to talk about that, but that's something I would definitely do. And this is why I like visual novels too, because you have multiple routes that overlap. A lot of the content does overlap. So if you have a visual novel with like 3 different routes, right? You know, there's like 3 different main characters or characters you can freaking, I don't know, whatever, date or whatever, then there's just a ton of overlapping words. And so that's why I got addicted to visual novels. And yeah, that's what he's saying, right? Don't jump straight to the hard stuff because especially don't let it get you down. If you can't understand something, then yeah, just like search around to find something. It's a balancing act. That's what it really is. But yeah, just because you don't understand something, even no matter how long you've been studying, don't let it get you down. Just know that if you stay the course, you will get there.
By the time you test your language skills, the competence level will be simulated on a micro level. Whether that be enjoying an anime, talking with a native, or even just understanding a simple sentence. Your goal as a language learner is to try and stay within this loop for as long as possible, meaning that confidence must be backed up by some degree of competence, even if it's in extremely small increments. This can actually be directly reapplied to level 1 and 2 as well. In level 1, clip 1 would break the confidence loop, while clip 2 would enforce it. In level 2, by gaining 85% word comprehension quickly, you gain mass amounts of competence in an extremely short amount of time. This would also positively impact the competence loop. Oh, and by the way, completely failing to understand media can in rare cases actually motivate you even more than staying within the loop.
If someone told you right now, like say you're out of shape, go run 100 miles, you'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? I'll die. And you probably will. So don't do that. But if they're like, okay, now go walk 1,000 steps, you know, that's really easy to get into. You can build your way up. And it's just the same thing like that. You know, what do they say? Journey 1,000 miles of 1,000 miles is 1 step or something. I took over the quote. I made it better. You don't have to jump into the deep end. Of course you can. You could do like me and just brute force your way. And I found enjoyment in that. But you know, everyone is different. So you're going to find different enjoyment. So, but yeah, try Karakai Jozu no Takagi-san. I highly recommend it. I mean, it has a 7.7 on my anime list. And it's about school and just like they're just bullying each other. And it's just funny. I don't know. I liked it a lot.
And allows you to recognize where you stand. But if this happens too often, it can be detrimental for your psychology. So be careful. You're now ready for level 3, the most essential level of this entire video. Level 3 is the first level you'll start enjoying and learning from native content. You should feel extremely...
Where do you live?
All right, everyone, I'm going to end the stream, but it's a very chill stream, but thank you for your time.